Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Here.
Assemblyman Gurr.
Here.
Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblyman Nguyen. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Torres.
Thank you. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us in Las Vegas and those listening over the internet. Just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. Please remember to silence all electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name, and state your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handouts should have already been provided to the committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents, and I know that there were a number of them sent to us for today's meeting. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours in advance or after the hearing. I do want to let the committee know that today we will be beginning with SB 184. Additionally, because I do expect this to be, I know that this is a lengthy conversation that we were going to have as a body. I would like the committee to know that during the hearing, we will allow for a 15-minute bill presentation from the presenters of the bill. That will be followed by questioning. Then we will take 20 minutes block of time and testimony for support, followed by a 15-minute presentation from the opposition from the city of North Las Vegas, followed by a 20-minute block of time for testimony in opposition. I don't believe that there is a neutral presenter. If there is, please let our staff know, and we are happy to allot the same amount of time. But then we can go into neutral, where I don't expect us to have a significant amount of our conversation today. At this time, I will go ahead and open up the hearing on SB 184, which revises the charter of the city of North Las Vegas. Senator Spearman, when you're ready, you may begin.
Good morning, Chair Flores and committee members. For the record, I am State Senator Pat Spearman, representing Senate District 1 in Clark County, and my district encompasses is only in North Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure that most of you by now have either heard or read, spoken to me or spoken to someone else about what the bill does. I'll start off by saying 4 things. And then I'd just like to read to you some comments and some thoughts. And I want to start off by saying this is not a contest to be won or lost by any elected official. This is actually bringing the voices of the people who elected us into view and them expecting us to do their bidding. This is about the people who cannot hire attorneys, so they vote for us, so that when we come to this place, we can speak for them. This is about the people who only make $35,000, $37,000, under $50,000 a year, who don't have the same choices in terms of where they want to live or where they'd like to live as we do. When I was retiring from the military, I'd come back and forth between Las Vegas, land in Las Vegas, and between D.C. And I never forget, I made my 3rd visit here, and the realtor was taking me around. She took me to Summerlin, a master plan community, took me out to Henderson, and took me to some spots in Las Vegas, old Las Vegas. And I said to her, show me something show me something in North Las Vegas. And this is what she did. Why? I said, because I'd like to see something in North Las Vegas. And she said to me, Colonel, you can afford to live anywhere. You know, why would you want to live there? You know, Summerlin is master plan, and she started talking about, and Henderson and all those things. And I said, because I really want to look at North Las Vegas. At the time, I was getting ready to assume pastoral duties at a United Methodist Church. And in talking to a lot of the people who were already there, learned a number of things as to why North Las Vegas probably needed someone like me and someone like our church to be there so that we could lift people up. And so I said, show me something in North Las Vegas. And she couldn't understand it. But we did look, and I looked at several different places and eventually settled on a place that was just a new development, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years old, and lived there. I pastored a United Methodist Church, and we canceled we rescheduled our Bible study from Wednesday night to Thursday night because Wednesday was the night that the city council met. And I encouraged people to make sure that they were involved with city and city activities, because if you're not involved in the place where you live, there are a number of things that may go on that may or may not benefit you. I was so involved with things that were going on in North Las Vegas, and not just North Las Vegas, but also in Clark County, so that there were several people that came to me in 2012 and asked me would I run for this seat. I had no intentions whatsoever. I was in the final phase of my doctoral work and starting to write my dissertation. And for me, it would have been an interruption. But they kept talking to me, and I talked to family and talked to friends, and they said, we really think you need to do it. And so I did. And surprise, surprise, I won. And since 2012, it has been my personal pleasure to represent the people of North Las Vegas in a number of ways. One of the things that we have done here as a state that I believe helps people in North Las Vegas is I had the pleasure of passing, along with Patricia Arquette, a bill that brought pay equity to the state. And Patty came in and we testified together, and we were able to get that across the finish line. In 2017, I brought back the Equal Rights Amendment. After people kept telling me, it's just a stunt, and you'll never get it across the finish line. And we don't really need an Equal Rights Amendment because we have this, this, and this. And I said, well, you know, I beg to differ because there are some things that are not happening. So I just lift those as just a couple of ways that I have tried to serve the people of North Las Vegas. Now, I won't be here next session. I'm retired, and my family's telling me you ought to act like it. So I won't be here. For me, Senate Bill 184 is a bill about equity and equality. Some of the issues addressed in this bill draw a straight line to issues I saw and worked to overcome in my military career, my personal life, and during the early days of the civil rights movement. Some of you may or may not know that I was among the first 15 students to integrate a high school in the heart of Alabama, about 25 miles from Montgomery. And that happened in 1969. 1954 was when Brown v. Board of Topeka was settled. So why did it take all the way till 1969 for some of the schools in Alabama to integrate? It's because they were forced to do so after the law became effective. The state wouldn't do it, and so the federal government said, you will. Some of you know Ruby Bridges. And the only reason that Ruby Bridges was escorted into school, and this is something that my niece wrote about and won an essay contest, escorted into school because of civil rights. I've served as a pastor more than 50 years, military chaplain, hospice chaplain, and several other areas. For those who don't know, I've been fighting for civil rights my entire adult life. My first elected position was in college as I served as the Chief Justice of the Student Government Association at Norfolk State University. Following college, I entered the military, where most of my working career involved improving rights and lives of the military for soldiers, refugees, and former prisoners of war. One of my assignments included serving with the Department of Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute to train in human relations, human and civil rights relations, equal opportunity and equal employment opportunity, and diversity to enhance mission readiness by fostering positive human relations throughout the Department of Defense. This extraordinary opportunity led me to a position to serve as the Equal Opportunity Officer for an entire brigade, military police brigade, at Fort Hood, Texas, where I oversaw the climate and civil rights issues in the military police brigade, and as the Equal Opportunity Officer in the Army Operations Center at the Pentagon. And I was asked to do so by the Chief of Staff when he looked at my background in equal opportunity and saw my assignments and the things that I had done. And he asked me, he said, we don't have anyone serving in this capacity, and during this particular war, we need to make sure that everyone who is working on this staff understands equity, understands culture, and we've got to make sure we do away with the hatred that is becoming very pervasive towards Muslims and people in the Middle East. And so I said yes. Much of the work involved fixing discriminatory housing, discrimination in terms of police, military police operations, and other things. Primarily, it was looking at the climate of the battalion, the brigade, looking at the climate of the operations center. And so my job was to take a look and see if there was anything that needed to be fixed, to suggest to the commanders at below the Pentagon level, and then to the Chief of Staff, what we could do to fix this. So, because we have to have equity and equality in the military, otherwise we go nowhere. I was also assigned to become the operations officer at the Cuban boat lift resettlement operation, and some of you may not have been born at that time, but my whole duty was to make sure that those who were coming into the States from the boat lift operations, make sure that they were treated equitably. And so I had some experience working with refugees. Also had some experience working with our UN assignment in Korea to make sure that prisoners of war were treated fairly. You'll hear a lot of things about what this bill may do, extraneous to what the bill actually suggests to be done. So let me just say this. All of these experiences came together, and that's the lens that I have brought Senate Bill 184. And I might also add, and you'll hear from some of the people testifying, that this was not my idea. This was the idea that was brought to me by several other individuals, and they asked me to do so, and so I have done it.
And Senator, I apologize, but if we could make sure we get to the bill. I have 3 other bills today as well, and our time is running. So I would like, if we could just get to the details of the bill. And I will note, though, out of fairness to all parties, if I extend time for the senator, then I have to extend time for the city as well. So please, if we could get to the bill.
So I will end. I don't know if the 15 minutes included the people who were going to testify or not.
So as was noted in the email that was sent to your staff, so the 15 minutes includes the presentation for the bill, and then we'll allow testimony and support after.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
So let me hurry to the bill. It does 4 things, and I will submit my testimony. I just think it was important for you all to understand why I did this. The bill does 4 things. Number 1, expands the North Las Vegas City Council. Number 2, requires the city manager to become an actual resident of North Las Vegas. And we have an amendment pending that will take it not from the city manager now, but to forward city managers. Number 3, to look at a diversity audit to make sure that the people who are working for the citizens of North Las Vegas actually mirror the residents of North Las Vegas. And finally, the bill does require the city to develop a diversity supply chain. That's what the bill does, and it's all about equity. It's about civil rights, CIVIL, and it's also about silver rights, SILVER. I'll stand for questions if you have any, and I'll submit my testimony. But again, I say this bill is not about me, and it's not about any of the other, quote, elected officials in this building or elsewhere. This bill is a bill that was brought for the people who don't have choices. I can move out of North Las Vegas. I can move out of Nevada. I can move out of the country. Many of you, most of you on the dais, you have choices about where to live. But this bill is about the people who do not have a choice where to live, and they want to make sure that they have adequate representation. That's it.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite committee members for any questions. I know I'm going to have a number of them. Yeah, committee members, if you could just raise your hand so I can start taking note. Okay, I will go ahead and begin with Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple questions, but I'll do my first. You can do a round and then. Thank you, Senator, for your presentation. You had just mentioned that there's an amendment, and I don't see that in.
It's an amendment that just came to me last night. And so it will, and the amendment actually grandfathers the current city manager, but moving forward. And I might also say that the city charter requires that now, but it also has a loophole that the city council can grant you a waiver to do that.
So are we hearing the bill with or without the amendment?
You're hearing the bill without the written amendment, but since it came to me so late, that's why I'm mentioning it now, so that when you get it, you will know what it is.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just to confirm for committee members, out of transparency, I have not yet received anything written either, but as soon as my office gets it, we'll make sure that we send it to committee members. Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the presentation, Senator. I just had a question, because you were talking about the bill does 4 things. So it expands it from 1 city manager to 4 city managers? No? Sorry, I missed that.
No, I'm sorry. Senator Spearman, for the record, expands it from 4 city council members to 6 city council members for a city that's population is above 274,000.
Okay, and then my other question is, why is this just about 1 city? Why aren't we looking at all city charters? You know, in this building, I think we look at the state for all. So what does that look like? What's the history, and kind of would you be open to expanding this so that all, you know, the argument about making sure everyone has representation so that all folks have representation in the council?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the Assemblywoman.
Please feel free to go directly to the members.
I bought this at the urging of citizens of North Las Vegas, who I represent. I don't represent Henderson. I don't represent Reno. I don't represent any. I represent North Las Vegas. And the people who bought this bill to me bought it to me because they said they wanted this to happen and they didn't think that it would. Members of the Charter Committee continued to ask me to bring this bill. I did not hear from the Charter Committee of Henderson. And by the way, AB 55 gave each city a charter. So when the city didn't act, the City Charter Committee came to me and asked me again, will you please bring this bill?
Thank you. Assemblywoman Thomas.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for your presentation. I appreciate it. I have several questions, actually. And you mentioned the Charter Committee, your last statement. And I was looking at reviewing the Charter Committee video. And I watched it once, twice, and I wanted to see if the Charter Committee, during their session, was able to bring forward any of what you've said in this bill, expanding the wards. And what I did discover was towards the end of their session, they had suggestions that for the next meeting that they would bring that up. So I'm not understanding when you say that you were impelled to bring this bill forward, which would include the provisions of the city manager. I didn't see that or hear it in that review of the Charter Committee. And then when you say to us that you have an amendment that came to you last night, I recall during the Senate, you did mention this provision of the city manager saying that, the state has deemed that it was necessary for the city manager to live in the city of North Las Vegas, because that's your bill. That's saying that the state has determined, not the city council, because in the original charter for Section 4, it indicates that the city council can waive the residency of the city manager. But from what I'm reading You are stating that the city manager must live in the city of, irregardless of what the city council has to say. So these are some of the questions that I have regarding this bill, but I understand that you said that you will have an amendment coming forward, and I appreciate you saying that. But, you know, most people on this dais know that I have a heartburn with the state overreaching. And to me, local government should be able to decide what the people that they govern need and want. And, you know, to me, if the people of North Las Vegas came to that charter committee meeting, and I only saw one person there in the audience, and I didn't see people coming forward with a pence for changing some of the things that I've read in this bill draft, or your bill.
So thank you. So Assemblywoman, let me first state that I shared with the attorney that's representing North Las Vegas that I would not make any changes unless the people who asked me to bring this bill, unless they concurred. And so I got concurrence last night about 11:30, 11:40, and that's why it's so late. I talked about it, but I promised them I would not make any changes unless they concurred. So that's why it came to me that late. With respect to overreaching, there are bills that are in this body right now that are saying to cities what you should do, what you can't do, and what you ought to do. And so with respect to the Charter Committee, and I'll stop talking so you can hear their words, not my words, the Charter Committee actually wanted other meetings to discuss these same things. This isn't about me, and this isn't really about anybody else except the people who wanted this to happen, but did not have another meeting of the Charter Committee so that they could say that. And so you'll hear from members of the Charter Committee who will say the same thing. With respect to local government, as I started my testimony, Alabama had local government that said, we ain't going to desegregate. But the federal government said, yeah, you're going to do it. And so when a lower government doesn't do, then it is the responsibility of the next level of government to do.
Follow-up, Chair, please, just briefly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so when, again, I reviewed the meeting of the charter, again, I saw that suggestions were made because they had an agenda, just like we have an agenda here, and you know this. So the next meeting, they were not barred from having a meeting. I did not hear that in there. I didn't hear the city manager say that you're barred from having another meeting. So I want to make that on the record.
Sure, thank you. And I won't respond to that. I'll just let the Charter Committee members answer the question because I wasn't there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do believe those are public meetings, right, too? So I'm sure we can request that the City of North Las Vegas make those available to committee members as well so that we can review those. Members, any additional questions? I believe I have Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator, thank you so much for starting your Tuesday morning with the hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature.
Yeah. You got a bill in my committee too, right?
I do. I'm so sorry. You're right. The second hardest.
You're a working committee.
Yeah, right. Just a couple of questions. Obviously, I'm not being from the South, but meaning the southern part of the state. I'm not from the South either, by the way. But my mama is. Okay, anyway, sorry, I digress. Sorry. But not being from the southern part of the state, being from Reno, I'm going to try to make some comparisons, if I may, a little bit from the city of Henderson to the city of Reno. And if you don't know some of these answers, I think we can probably get them, but I think you do. Size-wise, which one is large? City of Reno, city of Henderson, they're about the same, I think, but I think Henderson has surpassed Reno as the second. Am I correct about that?
So in order of Population?
Yes.
It's Las Vegas, Henderson, then North Las Vegas.
Okay, and then so we're number 4. Okay, all right. So thank you. So size-wise, that helps me from a comparison standpoint. Now, in Reno, do you happen to know, does our city charter require that the city manager live in Reno as you're comparing to Henderson?
I will answer that question with a caveat. I did have an opportunity to speak to 2 council members, and they told me yes.
Okay.
But I have not read your charter.
Okay.
Okay?
Same. Thank you very much. I'm trying to hurry along. These are just real quick. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate your indulgence. And then I know this answer. Obviously, the number of council members in Reno, we know is 7. Right, that's a part of your bill as well. Do you happen to know? And I was trying to find this and couldn't. Do you know if we started with 7 or did it grow over time?
Senator Spearman, District 1 for the record. So I don't know what the inception was for Reno. I do know that my first session, we did bring a bill that would add another ward because of the at-large system and what it cost people to run at-large versus run on the ward system. That bill didn't go through, but eventually I think you all did, and you went to 6 wards, and then 1 was at-large, and then recently you came to this body, surprise, surprise, this body to say whether or not you will stay at large or whether you will go to a 6th ward. And so this body accepted the fact that 6 wards would be enough plus the mayor. Just saying.
Okay, so thank you very much. It has, let's see, so we don't know if it's grown over time, but I know we do have that number. And you're right, it went from ward voting to citywide and so on. So I just wanted to have some basis of comparison, Reno versus Henderson. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Assemblyman De Silva and then Assemblyman DeLong for round 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for your great presentation. So, Mike, again, and I've said this many times, whenever you present in front of our committee here, that you are one of the great champions of equity and civil rights. But I wanted to kind of again touch on the question that Assemblywoman Gonzalez asked, and this was again about the bill really being a focus on North Las Vegas. If you're talking about civil rights, if you're talking about equity, what about some of the other boards? Particularly the city of Las Vegas, Clark County, which has a 30% plus Hispanic population, but no representation. I was wondering what your thoughts are on some of these other boards as well, the city of Las Vegas and Clark County being particular focuses. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pat Spearman, District 1. Though they may have issues, but as I said before, it was people from North Las Vegas that asked me to carry the bill. I didn't hear from anyone in Henderson, didn't hear from anyone in Reno, didn't hear from anyone in Sparks. It was the people, citizens of North Las Vegas. And so that's who I represent, and that's why I bought the bill.
Thank you. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Given the way this hearing's been set up, as far as the structure of support, opposition, et cetera, as well as some of the questioning, it seems like it's a pretty contentious proposal. Have these ideas been vetted in any of the political campaigns that have been run in the city of North Las Vegas as far as trying to vet these issues, whether it's in a mayoral race such as when you ran or any other of the council races?
Senator Pat Spearman, Senate District 1, and let me just say this. Yes, I did run for mayor, and oh, by the way, in case you haven't heard, I am glad it turned out the way that it did. I am honored to live in a city that is serviced by the first African-American mayor, and so was it brought up? No, it wasn't, because I was running for mayor, and I did not bring up this particular issue. It was something that continued to come to me, and some people even asked me, so if you win, who's going to carry that bill that we're supposed to have that will expand city council? I said, I don't know. And I didn't deal with it at all. Okay?
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go defer to our chief counsel. He's going to go ahead and chime in and add some clarification regarding the questions for Reno, the Reno City Charter. And he's online with us. So if members do have questions specific for legal, I know that was actually a question asked to me before the hearing. We can still defer to legal. Mr. Killian, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel, and I apologize for not being in the room with you, but I hope to be back in the room with you soon. So section 3.030 of the, 3.020 of the Reno City Charter is the section that controls the residency of the city manager for the city of Reno. Subsection 2 of that section requires the city manager to actually reside within the state or to become an actual resident of the state within 6 months after the date of his or her appointment. It contains no requirement for the city manager to reside in the city, but just a requirement that the city manager reside within the state of Nevada.
Mr. Killian, I would like to have a follow-up to that. Are there any city charters that do state that they have to be a resident of that specific city?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Council. I can do some quick research on that and get back to you.
Thank you. Just let us know when you're ready. We'll go back to you. Thank you. All right, members, any additional questions? I see Assemblyman Koenig.
I don't have a question, but I do know that in Fallon, the manager does have to live within the city limits.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? It doesn't appear that there's any additional questions at this time. Thank you. At this time, I will go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 184. The time is now 8:38. We'll go ahead and have 20 minutes of support testimony, so we'll go until 8:58. Anybody wishing to testify here in Carson City in support of this legislation? I do not see any here in Carson City. We'll go ahead and begin in Las Vegas. When you're ready, you may begin. And just out of the interest, although I had said that we will just allow 2 minutes, I'll go ahead and just run the clock, and then once those 20 minutes are up, they're up. So please be respectful of any others that might be in the room. Thank you. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Dear Chair and committee members, my name is Noel Orozco. That's Orosco. I am the program manager at Silver State Voices, which leads the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition, and we're here in support of SB 184. During the last redistricting cycle, coalition partners worked tirelessly with community members to develop community of interest maps. We also advocated for revisions to the proposed maps. My organization requested and received the North Las Vegas redistricting shape files on October 18th, 2021, just 2 days before the City Council discussed the proposed maps. Due to the delayed census data being released, the current boundaries were approved at the following City Council meeting. It is worth noting that tomorrow, this committee is scheduled to work session SB 16, the Carson City Charter, which also discusses redistricting, if there's a population deviation of more than 5% in any ward. North Las Vegas Charter also references this 5% deviation, and if we use the most recent Census Bureau estimates and free redistricting software, currently there is a 7.5% deviation in North Las Vegas wards. Since the 2020 census, North Las Vegas has increased by nearly 10,000 residents. Only 4 other cities in the nation have seen a higher increase. Further, when compared to other cities of similar size, it is clear that the increase is needed to provide adequate representation. Increasing the number of wards from 4 to 6 is a positive move that reflects the growth of North Las Vegas and helps ensure all communities have a voice in their governance. We urge you to support SB 184. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
My name is Timothy Smith. I live at 2405 Wild Onion Court, Old West Side, near Kyle Ranch, and I am a City Charter Committee member. I believe firmly in what the prior speaker also said, and I support this measure. This measure is fair and equitable across the board, and this will do things to help people. I am a disabled veteran, and I'm deeply disappointed that the committee that I sat on and was appointed on by Pamela Goins Brown was not able to complete the work. The other work that we were trying to consider is an additional school district, one of our own, one that we could be proud of, that we would be able to substantiate and be able to have fully functioning. Attack fire stations, which will be able to help in the event of emergency. Up at Apex, there are many other issues that this committee was not allowed to do and wasn't allowed to bring forward, but one issue and one issue only, and that was an additional judge for a committee. This committee should be able to do its work and not be stymied by city officials. This is deeply disappointing. We can do things better in North Las Vegas. We have. We built the very first one-of-a-kind Veterans Resource Center that is located on East Centennial. I know it's not an issue that's before you now, but this is something that we were able to accomplish in the city of North Las Vegas. It makes me extremely proud. I want to be continually proud of this, and I support strongly Measure 184. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas? Not seeing anyone else in Las Vegas, I'll go ahead and go to the phone. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 184? Thank you.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 184, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed.
Hello, my name is Jovan Jackson. I'm in support of this bill. I actually ran for North Las Vegas City Council last year, and this was something that was brought up during the town hall meeting. So this is not something that, that is just brought up during the session. This is something that the city charter has been wanting. They've been wanting to expand city council. I even sat next to Councilman Scott Black, when the city charter, mentioned this. So this is not something new. And I think my biggest fear is that, that this doesn't get passed and 2 years from now, nothing gets done and, the city charter is silent. So, what Pat Spearman is saying, that this is coming from the charter. This is coming from the people. Like I said, I heard this in, when I ran for office in 2022. So I just don't want voices to be silenced. Like she said, this is a civil rights issue. This is a matter of democracy, and it's a matter of making sure our voices are heard. And I think with Ms. Goins, we've seen that she was, elected mayor, but she didn't even have the power to appoint someone to her seat. So we need the representation in North Las Vegas. We need to make sure our voices aren't silenced. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good morning, Chair Torres and committee members. For the record, my name is Shelby Swartz with Battleborn Progress. We are in strong support of SB 184, and we thank Senator Spearman for bringing forward this critical measure. The 2020 census showed that nationally, Nevada is the third most diverse state, fourth with the most Asian American Pacific Islander residents, and fifth with the most Latino residents. With so much diversity in this great state, we think it is important to increase the number of council members of the City Council of the City of North Las Vegas. Anytime we get the chance to expand our democracy, we try and put our best foot forward. We would like to thank Senator Spearman again for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you, BPS. Next caller.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. My name is Marla Turner. I'm a lifelong resident of Nevada. I'm a 4-year resident of North Las Vegas. And I'm in support of SB 184 for all the various reasons, all the different components in the bill. And you'll find that in the statement under your resources tab on the legislature's website. But what I really want to speak about today is about the Charter Committee. You're going to hear from some who will say that this bill is premature, that it's an overreach, that what it seeks to do should be done by the Charter Committee and the local authorities. But what I want to stress is that the North Las Vegas Charter Committee really did try to do this, and they were shut down, either by staff or administration. They tried to come back, were shut down again, and we've already heard Senate testimony from various members of the Charter Committee, and one this morning on this very point, who left feeling completely thwarted and frustrated. So at some point, we have to allow people another venue to get their concerns heard. If they tried the accepted or the required method and were turned away. And this bill is that way. So you'll see all my other reasons under the resources tab. I kindly urge you to support this bill, and thank you so much for your time this morning.
BPS, next
Good
caller.
morning, Chair and committee members.
Go ahead. Please
Good morning,
proceed.
Chair and committee members. My name is Jessica Munger. MUNGER. I'm the program manager for Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ plus civil rights organization, and we are in strong support of SB 184. Thank you so much. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Yesenia Moya, YESENIA I am here in support of SB 184. I want to thank the senator for bringing this forth. I testified in support during the last committee hearing, and it was important to me then, and it continues to be important to me now, that it is on record that this is another opportunity or another avenue that the folks on the charter and the people of the city of North Las Vegas have tried to bring this forth. I am urging the legislature to please be part of that democracy where we need checks and balances. If the people can't get what they want through one avenue, this is another avenue. We are coming to this place because they have been trying to do this and have been blocked from doing this within their own capacity. And so they're coming to you as the legislature, as a body of power in the state, to continue to listen to the voices of the people. And so I urge you, like the many other callers, to please do not silence the people of the city of North Las Vegas and to help expand their democracy.
Thank you. And before you get off the line, what organization are you affiliated with? Or are you on your own behalf?
I'm on my own behalf today.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you. BPS, next caller.
Hello.
Hi, yes, please proceed.
Hello, my name is Donna Darden, a member of the North Las Vegas Charter Committee. I would like to offer my support for SB 184 and urge you to vote yay. I want to clear up some confusion centered around this legislation. The North Las Vegas Charter Committee was only permitted to conduct two meetings, one a private orientation meeting and the other a public hearing. At the public hearing, city staff controlled the agenda, presenting only AB 55. We were forbidden by the city staff for discussing any other charter revision ideas during our public hearing. When we attempted to conduct additional public hearings to review and potentially amend the city charter, the city state deliberately prevented us from conducting additional hearings before the September deadline for BDRs. We have never been permitted to conduct additional hearings. I was told several times by city staff that our job was done and that a committee hearing was not required. In short, we have not had the opportunity to meet to date to discuss, amend, or recommend any amendment to the city charter. In short, we have been blocked from performing our sworn duties. Additionally, you will hear from current city council members and outside lobbyists that this issue should go to the charter committee first. The Charter Committee would have been very happy to discuss this. However, the same city leadership willfully impeding our abilities to perform our duties and hear any amendments to the city charter unless it was submitted by city staff. And based on testimony that was presented before the Nevada State Senate, city leadership would never permit us to discuss increasing the city council. Members of the City Council were not notified of the existence of this Charter Committee until late January or early February of 2022, more than 7 months after AB 55, which established the Charter Committee, took effect. The Charter Committee was finally established more than 10 months after the law went into effect. In conclusion, my support for SB 185 stems from knowing it will provide a well-needed representation for the people of North Las Vegas by increasing the city council from the current 5 members to 7. Based on the population, which is larger than Reno, which has 7 council members, North Las Vegas is overdue for an increase.
And if you could please wrap up your testimony.
I totally support SB 184. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, next caller.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Cesar Carvajal, CESAR, CARVAJAL. I'm calling in as a lifelong resident of North Las Vegas, and I would like to thank Senator Pat Spearman for bringing this bill up. I think it's very important because we do need greater representation in North Las Vegas. We are the most diverse city in Nevada, and we do deserve more than 4 representatives to represent our city. The average city council size around the nation is 8. Again, we have 4. Imperial, California, with a population of 21,000, has 3 city council members, and we have a population of 275,000 people. And I just think that we need to do better for our people, for our residents of North Las Vegas. We have a number of issues to address in our city. We have a housing issue. We have an income inequality issue here in North Las Vegas. The poverty, about 20% of North Las Vegas residents live below the poverty line. We have a income inequality gap. We have a wage disparity issue that we need to address. There are a lot of issues that we need to look at, and I think we can do that with more representation, with more city council members. And that's it. Thank you all for the time, and I urge you all to support SB 184.
One moment, Chair.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Laura Martin. I'm the Executive Director of the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada and also a resident of North Las Vegas for the last 8 years. And yes, my smoke detector battery is malfunctioning. At Plan, we believe our democracy is most vibrant when people are participating in it. By increasing the number of seats on the council, residents of North Las Vegas will have a more representative city council. In addition, the city of North Las Vegas is full of diverse and vibrant cultures. It is essential that those who are serving the city in the positions of city manager truly understand the community they are representing as well and should be a resident. And by requiring the city manager prepare an annual diversity study and establish a supplier diversity program, we can ensure that all voices of the community are part of the local government. North Las Vegas should be for the people, not for corporations who want to turn empty, neglected lots into warehouses or build yet another chain restaurant. As our state's only majority people of color city, we should be a model of democracy, not a banana republic. We urge your support of Senate Bill 184. Thank you.
Callers, if you've recently joined the call and would like to testify in support of SB 184, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marlene Lockhart, representing SEIU 1107, and we are in support of SB 184. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Quentin Savoie. I'm the president of the Las Vegas NAACP. My name is spelled Quentin. Last name is S like Sam, A like Apple, V like Victor, WOIR. I come to you today on behalf of our branch members, a majority of which who live in North Las Vegas, who would benefit from there being a greater and more representative city council. The NAACP nationally has long had a role in ensuring that there is adequate and equitable representation for communities of color, specifically Black people, on city council. The NAACP played a historic role in passing the Voting Rights Act, which political scientists and researchers and academics would tell you that played an essential role in increasing the amount of representation that we see on city councils across the country. North Las Vegas continues to underrepresent communities of color and Black people specifically, and it truly begs the question that if we had greater representation on the council, if our communities would be facing the issues that they are facing, i.e. Windsor Park. I urge support of this bill. Thank you so much, Senator, for bringing this in support of our communities. Take care.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you. And with 4.5 minutes left on the clock, I'll invite anybody else here in here in Carson City wishing to testify in support of the bill. I don't see anyone here in Carson City. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of SB 184? I don't believe there are any. So at this time, I'll invite the City of North Las Vegas up to do their opposition presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres and the members of the Hardworking Committee on Government Affairs. My name is Leonardo Benavides. I am the Government Affairs Manager for the City of North Las Vegas. I am here today to address concerns that the City has with SB 184 and various statements that have been made about this bill during the legislative session. Last session, the City proposed changes to its charter, and this institution expressed concern with making changes without community involvement. To this end, last session, the Legislature created the City of North Las Vegas Charter Committee, comprised of council and legislative appointees, including an appointee by the sponsor of this bill. Notably, none of the proposed changes contained in the bill were presented to the Charter Committee, nor were they discussed with Council prior to the bill being published on Nellis. The Charter Committee's involvement should not be optional, as it is designed to have robust conversations about substantive charter changes. For example, when the Charter Committee last year, staff asked the committee to consider amending the charter to add a hearing master. The committee voted not to recommend this amendment. The City accepted the will of the committee and did not pursue the amendment. And despite statements that had been made during the session, the City, and specifically myself, have encouraged those conversations to make sure the committee understood expectations and what recommendations could be brought forward. While I greatly appreciate the work of the legislature, I understand the limitations of the institution brought on by the time pressure of only 120 days to consider legislation. I believe significant changes to a city charter are best discussed in the community before they are presented to this body for consideration. And while the process wasn't perfect, to completely overlook and radically alter a city charter after only one interim with the charter committee would be a disservice to the whole process. I will now show you a short video with some highlights and notes from our charter committee meeting in June before I pass it on to Mayor Pamela Goins-Brown.
Not met. But please do not forget that. Please do not forget the testimony of the members of the Charter Committee members. Okay? They would have asked questions, and they would have recommended some changes, but they didn't meet.
So to note, on the June 27, 2022 meeting of the Charter Committee, the committee was advised several times that they can make any recommendations and that there was no limit to the number of recommended changes to the city charter. What follows here is some snippets from that video, and we can also provide the full video to the committee afterwards as well, as it is available on our website. As an advisory committee to the City Council, the committee can make recommendations to the Council prior to the Council's second meeting in August, which would once again put us back on that timeline of August 3rd, regarding any changes that the committee has decided to recommend.
Question is that your statement was that we could make as many submissions and suggestions, bills, but that the council could only submit 2. Are you saying that if I have 5, that the council will prioritize those and what will be submitted so that it's down to 2?
Leonardo Benavides for the record. So yes, let me just clarify. The city only gets 2 bill draft requests they can submit to the legislature. So that's 2 different bills. That's 2 different subjects. In regards to the charter, that's considered one subject. So any changes to the charter, which can be multiple, depending on how many recommendations you make, can be included in one bill draft request. So that limit of 2 does not apply to any changes to the charter. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
committee can make as many recommendations to council as you find necessary regarding the charter.
So what I want to provide here to the committee is that Agenda Item 5 was written broadly to enable committee members to discuss any possible changes. Number 5 reads, discuss possible charter changes and staff recommended changes and affirm recommendations for City Council regarding revisions to the North Las Vegas City Charter, and in parentheses for discussion and possible action.
Any changes would have fallen under this broad agenda item.
We agree.
So any type of new business was turned down. And only the presentation by the city was allowed.
In regards to this agenda item, that is a proposed that the staff is bringing to you. You may accept that. We may potentially revise it per the committee's wishes. We may also accept any other recommendations for any charter changes. Would be the time to do that and have that discussion.
Well, my understanding is that at this point, we would have to put together a recommendation from this committee to be submitted in August, and then that recommendation, if the city council wants to go forward with the bill or a portion of a bill, it would be submitted to the legislature. I'd like to see if we could appoint a committee, 4 or 5 people here who would be willing to work on this as so that it could be presented again in August, when I think we meet again in August. We don't?
Leonardo Benavides, for the record, the recommendations would need to be into the city council by the August 3rd meeting in order to decide if there would be any BDRs that we were presented on the second meeting in August. So it's a bit of a timeline. If there is hunger for an additional meeting, there can be a special meeting of the charter committee called, if you so please.
Yeah, we could call another meeting for ourselves, and I'm wondering if Mr. Romero and Mr. Frank, is it Frank? Jones, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones. I'm sorry, it's difficult to see names sometimes up here. And Miss Darden, at least that's 3 people. Or do I have anybody else who would like?
I'll be willing to help. Yep.
Your name?
Tim Smith.
Ted Smith, okay.
Tim, for the record, yeah.
Then Gil Lopez, I'll be interested as well.
A couple of different things. If we want to have a different meeting before we make any motion, yes, we can make edits to language as preferred by the committee. The committee can vote to not make any recommendations. The committee can also discuss if there's any other suggestions they want to make to the charter committee right now during this time. So that can be also brought forward for conversation. So there's different things that we can do from here.
Somebody could probably make a motion to not recommend this proposed language and instead recommend to the city council that they need to create a new municipal court judicial department.
That could be as simple as that.
Okay, so move.
Motion carries.
Thank you very, very much for your participation in this. This is what the city needs. Is we represent the city here, and your participation is greatly, greatly appreciated. Okay, next item on the agenda, staff items.
To clarify, by this time, agenda number 5 was closed. However, when members brought potential changes, we gave them the option to reopen the agenda item in order to properly absorb open meeting laws.
If we had another possible recommendation, should we say that now?
So just to clarify, we have to stick to the topics that are on the agenda. So item number 5, if there's still discussion on that item, then we need to reopen that if anybody else has discussion on that item.
All right, we can continue with staff items.
As you can see, they chose not to reopen it. I now give the rest of my time to North Las Vegas Mayor Pamela Goins-Brown.
Chairwoman Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and committee members. My name is Pamela Goins Brown, and I am the proud mayor of North Las Vegas. I want to thank you, Chairwoman, in this committee for your fairness in giving us time to address this bill. I want to thank Leo for correcting and getting the actual facts on the record. The video speaks for itself. The Charter Committee had a meeting on June 27, 22, and staff invited them several times to have more meetings if they proposed charter changes. The facts of SB 184 are very simple. Last year, the bill sponsor and I ran against each other to become mayor of North Las Vegas. 65.7% of the voters voted for me, and 34.2% voted for Senator Spearman. Following the election, she introduced this bill to try to make specific changes to the operations of the city that she was not elected to run. The media has correctly characterized this bill as overreach and underhanded. Leading Nevada political commentator John Ralston tweeted, state senator loses bid for North Las Vegas mayor, then goes back to Carson City and proposes bill to try to impose stuff on woman who defeated her. You can't make this stuff up. Let the record reflect that many of the callers who testified on this bill were listed on the bill sponsor's C&E reports as paid campaign staffers, or they were volunteers of her campaign for mayor. In fact, on Nellis, under the exhibits tab for this bill, there's an exhibit titled Presentation of Lawsuits in North Las Vegas submitted by Senator Spearman. The metadata on this exhibit shows the PDF document was created by Marla Turner, who was a paid campaign member of the bill sponsor's campaign for mayor. A few months ago, the residents of North Las Vegas spoke very loud and extremely clear when they overwhelmingly elected their mayor. In an era of election denial, where fanatics and extreme challenges the bedrock of our democracy by attacking the U.S. Capitol, the 13 members of this committee are being asked to subvert the will of the voters and essentially deny the outcome of the election. SB 184 was originally framed in much different terms. However, once opposition grew, the bill suddenly became a bill about civil rights. As a black woman and the first black mayor elected in the state of Nevada, I testify to you today that this bill is not about civil rights and the last-ditch effort to shut down debate and intimidate opposition by using the sacred and cherished movement of civil rights is disgraceful and disheartening. As many of you know, this bill has been This has been a very difficult session for North Las Vegas. Our community and staff have been under constant attack by a couple of people with deeply personal motives. Indeed, after the governor announced his intent to veto this bill, SB 246 was quietly amended to include more changes to the North Las Vegas city charter. I am very grateful for those in this building who apply a critical eye and a thoughtful and open mind to the underhanded and despicable attacks of our residents and public servants. The belligerence, animosity, contentions must end. It does nothing to serve our residents. I want to thank you all again for the opportunity we had at the beginning of the session to make a presentation to you about our wonderful city. When I was first elected to council, the city was nearly bankrupt and our residents were facing increased taxes and cuts in city services. When facing financial challenges, governments usually borrow more money to increase taxes. We decided to try something new and different when we set out a strategy that prioritized attracting new businesses and helping existing businesses grow so we could build a new tax base to solve our revenue shortfall. Our strategy succeeded, and we almost tripled the size of our tax base, saving the city and allowing us to start increasing services and programs for our residents. During the height of the COVID pandemic, our city was at the forefront of assisting our residents and businesses. We collaborated with the municipal court and reopened the Community Correction Center to promote restorative justice and create a therapeutic court system. We created a revolutionary small business center that has serviced more than 1,100 small businesses, 75% of which are minority, veteran, or women-owned. We revamped our city website to make it easier for residents to navigate and access our city in multiple languages. We broke ground on the Veterans and Community Resource Center near the VA. We are looking forward to opening the Dolores Huerta Community Resource Center, making profound impact in our community. Almost daily, residents come up to me and tell me how proud they are of our community and how amazed they are to see the transformation of our city. Our residents overwhelmingly re-elected our 2 council members in the past election, and I was fortunate they selected me to move from council to the mayor's office. SB 184 was written to change the council and management team after voters affirmed that they resoundingly approve of the leadership at the city and the incredible success they have and continue to deliver. I understand and respect your discretion as legislators to change our charter, and I believe the changes in SB 184 are changes that should be discussed first in our community and in the charter committee. Our neighbors are well represented by our council. We have a minority-majority population that is represented by a minority-majority council and served by a minority-majority leadership team. Statements that our communities of color lack a voice in City Hall are misleading and false. The truth is that 40% of our council is Hispanic and our community is 42% Hispanic, and 20% of our council is African American and 22% of our community is African American. This is wonderful and should be celebrated, and I am so proud of the racial diversity of our council, almost perfectly mirrors that of our community. I know you are all very busy, and I appreciate your service to our community and state. I am thankful for the many people in this building who seek to build, lift, encourage, and construct bridges of understanding. Differences of opinion are part of this process, and it is important to manage honest differences of opinion with mutual respect and dignified dialogue as we seek respectful ways to resolve complex issues and enlightened ways to work out disagreements, with the goal ultimately of how to best serve our constituents. Voters in Southern Nevada just elected 3 new mayors during the last election, yet this bill singles out only our city and allows other new mayors to start running their city at the local level without proposing significant and surprise changes to their charters a few months after they took office. Trust me, I think this is wonderful that they are trusted to govern, and I am asking you to please trust me too. Electing our state's first black mayor is a glorious milestone for Nevada, and I am honored and humbled by this historic first. Now I am simply asking you to treat me like all the other newly elected mayors and let me govern. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for your presentation. And I'll just remind the committee, given the remarks from the City of North Las Vegas, that despite the executive's decision on a piece of legislation, obviously the legislature's responsibility is to legislate, and we will continue to look at the policy regardless of what another house has done or what the executive may do. At this time, members, I will open it up for questions. Vice Chair Duran.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation as well. My question is, when was the last time did you redraw the lines for the council wards, and how? And if so, how quickly can this be done?
Do we do that in?
Thank you, Ryan Juden, for the record, City Manager, City of North Las Vegas. We draw the council lines following a census, which is best practice across government. I believe that there's a letter that was submitted to the record from Brookings Institute, which testified in opposition to this bill in the Senate. And they clearly laid out the reason why lines are drawn when they're drawn. Whenever you have census data that is the most accurate, that's the freshest, is the appropriate time to draw lines. As far as how long it takes, it depends. You have to hire a consultant. You have to put it out for bid, bring in a consultant, hire the consultant, then the consultant has to work through the process. One of the things in North Las Vegas that's, as the mayor mentioned about the diversity of the city, it's also, from metropolitan regions, it's the third least segregated region in the entire country. And that's really something that's a hallmark of North Las Vegas. But what it does is it makes it difficult for a demographer to go in and to find communities that are compact enough, communities of interest that are compact enough in order to draw districts to provide a voice to that community. So it is a little bit of a more difficult process in North Las Vegas.
Yeah, go ahead. Quick follow-up, Vice Chair.
So do you recall the last time the wards were, or the lines were drawn?
Yes, ma'am. They were drawn following the 2020. They were drawn following the 2020 census.
Thank you, members. Any additional question? Assemblywoman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and all of you for being here for the presentation. I do have just a couple of questions, and thank you to the city manager for sharing that's typically when, like you said, when lines are redrawn. I'm wondering if the council ever considered if that would be the appropriate time, since lines would be looking at, to expand the council because your city has grown so much.
Ryan Juden, for the record, City of North Las Vegas. Great question. The city charter limits the number of council seats. So if there was permissible language in the charter that would allow the council to enlarge its size, it could have been something they could have considered. But because the charter limits the number of council seats, it was not something they would be able to consider.
Okay, I appreciate that. May I have a follow-up, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And then I think an obvious question is, why weren't there more meetings of the charter? Why one of the people who phoned in said it took 10 months before that happened. It sounds like they've had maybe 1 or 2 meetings, just based upon and thank you for bringing all the information that you did, because it's actually very helpful. And then based upon some of the comments, at some point, they said they wanted to talk about more things, but then when they were given the chance, they didn't. And so that's kind of confusing to me as well. So can you help me with the charter piece?
Yes, Leonardo Benavides, City of North Las Vegas. Thank you for your question to Assemblywoman Taylor. So in regards to, as I mentioned, right, this is our first time with the Charter Committee. I think it was even mentioned on the Senate Government Affairs by one of our good senators that the first time you set up a committee, it's not going to be without any bumps and hiccups on the road, right? We have to go through the resolution process. We have to go through the appointment process, figuring out what that looks like. We looked at other cities for best practices, for what would be the best way to make sure, because some of the ways that the charter bylaws were set by state law were a little bit hazy. It's like, okay, so with this certain so-and-so person is appointed by the minority or the Assembly minority, Senate minority, right? Is that the one-to-one? Is it all a leadership thing, right? So these were questions we were trying to figure out within the process. And not to mention, we were also still coming out of COVID and a lot of emergency regulations we were still dealing with there. So yes, I think there was a little bit longer it took than it would have when you first set up a charter committee, as opposed to what we're looking to forward in terms of that. And so once we had that charter committee and we brought forward the proposed changes, we did have open meeting law orientations before with all the members beforehand, just to make sure they had an understanding of what the charter would look like, make sure they had a copy to look at, try to have a feeling for what open meeting laws implied. And as you saw from that video, we tried to be very helpful in guiding them along and making sure if there was something that was not clear, that we explained that process to them. And we tried to give them every option at that time. Hey, we want to have a further discussion. We want to hammer out further details and look at that. That opportunity was there, right? But it wasn't presented at the time. And so when they made they basically quashed the motion to bring any recommendations forward to the council at that time. And then there was nothing else from the chair or any member that I heard of before the deadline for when the BDRs were due to discuss that, right? Which is the timeline I made clear to the Charter Committee as well. And I really did not hear anything about wanting to have another meeting until after the election, almost the end of December at that point, where the discussion was, does that make sense as we're getting up for the legislative session where potentially the changes might be done to charters? Because I don't think the charter committees were built with that intent. I think obviously at the end of the day, the role of the charter committee is to help with that charter recommendations that we bring forward to the legislative session for the BDR. So there were some conversations, especially regarding having more continual meetings after this legislative session.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate those. Just my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? We got a couple. I think I have Assemblywoman Gonzalez and then Assemblywoman Thomas. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. So now we've heard both sides, and I was just curious, does the City of North Las Vegas have any intent to expand their charter? And also, on the campaign trail, is this something that you heard as well? Is this something that the citizens of North Las Vegas want? Thank you.
Pamela Goins Brown, for the record. The second part of your question was no, there was not any conversation on the campaign trail, and I knocked on doors almost daily, talked to constituents via phone, email, text messages. That conversation never came up.
Ryan June, for the record. I can imagine that when the Charter Committee meets again, they will be discussing the points of this bill. They are free to do it. The members of the legislature have appointees to the committee. In case someone didn't hear about it, you heard from several Charter Committee members that were on the committee, and I'm pretty sure they'll be talking about it.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, North Las Vegas, for your presentation. I do appreciate, for the record, putting some of the discrepancies that we heard earlier on the record. My question actually has to do with something that Mayor Goins Brown had said about fiscal insovereignty, because I think that you were explaining how the city was able to turn itself around. And I was just wondering if you can expound on that.
Ryan June, City Manager for the City of North Las Vegas, for the record. That's true. It was actually surprising to me during this hearing for this bill and hearings for other bills where it's been stated by Senator Spearman that it was AB 503 in the 2013 session that orchestrated and developed the plan to save the city of North Las Vegas. In fact, that the title of that bill from 2013 was read into the record by Senator Spearman. And it reminded me of a story as a young father. I would take my son, who was 3 or 4 at the time, to Home Depot or Lowe's to go on an errand. And I learned really quickly that I'd rather take him to Lowe's than Home Depot because Lowe's had this grocery cart. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was blue and it looked like a NASCAR. And I could put him in it because he wouldn't face me. He could face outwards. And there's this little steering wheel that he could steer on that cart. And he didn't hate going to the lumber yard, but he hated sitting in the cart. But when I sat him in that cart, he's perfectly fine. We'd go throughout the store, no problem. And then one particular time we get done and we go up to the cashier and the cashier looks at my little boy and says, did you help your dad get everything he needs? Did you get him safely through the store? Something to that effect. And my son kind of, stood up a little bit in his chair and said, I did. I made sure my dad got everything he needed. I thought about that story whenever I heard the senator talk about that AB 503 because AB 503 did nothing for the city of North Las Vegas. No more than that little wheel on the Lowe's shopping cart helped the cart get around Lowe's. AB 503, for context, was brought on the 115th day of the 2013 session. With 5 days left in the session, the city of North Las Vegas came to the legislature and said, we need money. We're running out of money. We need to go back into our utility fund to access more money. That's the representation they made to this body. I came into the city about 4 months later, and our team quickly identified that the city of North Las Vegas had misrepresented to the legislature. They had submitted information that was not accurate, and we were horrified to hear this. In fact, I think to this day, North Las Vegas gets a bad rap in this building because of those misrepresentations and lies from 2013. But I wasn't there, my team wasn't there, council wasn't the same council. And I can tell you that we have never used the provisions of AB 503 at all. In fact, it was a difficult conversation that the mayor and council had to have with stakeholders in January of 2014, and it was widely publicized in the media. You can see it. That we talked to the Committee of Local Government Finance and said, we're not going to use this. We talked to Chairwoman Kirkpatrick, who at the time of the bill being passed was in legislative leadership. She was Speaker of the Assembly, and said, we're sorry, but you guys have been lied to, and we're not going to use the provisions of that bill. In fact, it was SB 78, which was the plan that saved the city of North Las Vegas. That was submitted by the city of North Las Vegas in a BDR in the 2017 session. I know the people that worked on that bill. I know the hard work that they put into that. I know their names. I know the sacrifices they made. That was the bill that we brought to this legislative body, and we worked with the legislature to help them understand the tools that we needed in order for us to be able to save the city of North Las Vegas. And I'm thankful that this body gave us those tools. I testified about this a few months ago when we did a presentation before this committee. Those tools were essential for us to use to save the city of North Las Vegas. So it was disheartening to hear that. And as city manager, I want to defend our people and our staff against any allegations that 503 had anything to do with saving the city of North Las Vegas. There's a theory in political science. It's within the rational choice model. It's called credit seeking. It's something that's used a lot by political scientists to help explain why choices are made in a political arena such as this. And I believe that if you're going to take credit for something or say that the legislature or that you in particular orchestrated or developed the plan to save North Las Vegas, you better cite the right bill.
Thank you. Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the process. I think Mr. Benavides says earlier that the council are limited from changing the seats because of the charter limitation, right? So then, as I understand it through this process, then the charter committee would then make the decisions to recommend anything back to the council. Is that how the process works?
Leonardo Benavides, Assemblyman Nguyen, to you, that's correct, right? So the city of North Las Vegas cannot just change the charter outright. It has to be brought for any changes have to be brought forward to the legislative session. And up until prior to this past interim, there was no charter committee to be involved in the process. So that was just added in this past interim. And so the spirit of the charter committee and how it's brought forward, a lot of that was copying what the city of Henderson does with our charter committee, right? So it's a collaborative body, right? At the end of the day, the charter committee works on those recommendations to what they see fit should be changed in the charter, and the council has the final say on whether they'll accept them, they'll go another way, or just not move forward, right? And so as I noted earlier, the staff recommended changes we brought forward, the charter committee denied that, and we respected that process. So that's pretty much the process that we're looking at now.
Follow-up, Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So just so that I can understand this, because as a former planning commission in Clark County, that was my first time serving on a county body that follows open meeting laws. Sometimes we get thrown with so many things, process, rules, procedure. Everyday people like us, when we get up to those roles, sometimes are deer in headlights because we're like, wait, whoa, this rule, that rule. That's why we have council and staff. I appreciate, all the staff support. But I think it's still unclear to everyday people that even that looks at this video and look at the legislature just from outside, just observing what is going on, the process, right? It's still sometimes very daunting, even at the charter committee level or anybody in the state in terms of volunteer members who serve outside of elected official, and even that sometimes we get a lot of education so quick, and we just didn't have a lot of knowledge. So with that said, I'm concerned a little bit on the transparency. The last time on your city record, the charter committee met, that was in 2022. Is that correct? And for some reason, I cannot find any minutes. And the last meeting that took place was in 2022. And right now we're looking at May 2023. And yet there's still no minutes established for that particular meeting.
Leonard Benavides, for the record, I will double check on the minutes. I know the video and everything should be available, but I'll double check with our city clerk's office and we can get that to the committee.
Yeah, I think, Chair, if you allow just a follow-up point, I just want to make sure that we want to be as transparent as we can in the processes so that folks can understand and member like myself can understand how things work. And I know that I was going through your very awesome website. You have a lot of new technology, so I'm sure that you kept up with all of this. But when I click at every single committee, there are minutes that follow really quickly. But I just feel like charter committees just kind of got lost in the shuffle and did not get the attention that it should, because the committee itself is so important to do so many important things, right, regarding the city charter. Yes, so great if you could send the committee the minutes. I would love to just see the proceeding and how everybody, whether they understood their position or don't understand their position, because sometimes when there's so many things throwing at them and the meetings have so many people, it's hard for folks to understand how the process works, because, we do truly want adequate representation, and we do want our citizens to get involved, and we want to support our mayor and government to do the things that they're supposed to do, but sometimes we just need to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and it sounds like through this bill, not everyone's on the same page. Thank you, Chair.
And we're going to go to legal. I do have a couple questions that I am going to direct towards legal that kind of expand on the piece of legislation that we're looking at today. So on page 7 of the bill, there's some language regarding the city attorney that I'm going to ask legal to clarify. I just wanted to see how this language compares to the role of LCB Legal with us, so I could get that understanding. So if we want to begin there, and then I'm sure there'll be other questions for you, Mr. Killian. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So the language that you're referring to in subsection 8 of section 6 on page 7, it generally makes the city attorney it makes the city council and the mayor the organizational client of the city attorney. So the city attorney represents the council and mayor in an organizational capacity rather than a personal capacity. And we have a similar relationship between the Legislative Counsel Bureau and the legislature. The legal division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau represents the legislature as an institutional client, and we represent individual legislators solely in their official capacity as constituents of that organizational client. We cannot provide advice or counsel to members of the legislature on personal issues, on legal issues unrelated to their legislative service. Obviously, the ambit of the legislature is slightly larger than that of the city council. There are relatively limited matters that come before the city council, whereas the legislature writes the law. So it has a much broader range of issues on which it could request advice. But the fundamental relationship between the Legislative Council and the legislature, and between the city attorney and the city council and mayor as contemplated in this bill, are the same. Both attorneys would represent the entity as an institutional client, and the elected members who are constituents of that entity solely in their official capacity as a result of them being constituents of that organizational client.
Thank you. And I did have another question kind of to build off of Assemblyman Wynn's question. Do we require public bodies to post minutes? And if not, that might be something that this legislative body looks to in the future, but I'm just wondering if that's currently a requirement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. Yes, somewhat. So under NRS 241.035 subsection 2, within 30 working days after the adjournment of a meeting of a public body, the body is required to publish either minutes or an audio recording of the meeting. So one of those two things has to be done within 30 working days. Either they have to produce and publish minutes, or they have to produce and publish an audio recording of a meeting. That section of law isn't clear about whether a video recording counts as an audio recording, but just applying common sense, if audio is fully available as part of a video recording, that would probably satisfy the requirements of the law. But theoretically, under subsection 2 of NRS 241.035, as long as that audio recording has been posted, there's no requirement to additionally produce minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that might be something that we as a body look to in the future when we're thinking about transparency of meetings. And then I wanted to go back to the question that we had asked earlier regarding the residency requirements for city managers, as it is for other jurisdictions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So yes, there are three charter cities, three cities organized under a charter that require residency for a city manager. Boulder City under Section 26 of their charter, Sparks under Section 3020 of their charter, and then Henderson under Section 3110 of their charter, but Henderson's residency requirement is waivable. In addition, for cities organized under general law, NRS 266-400 authorizes those cities to impose a residency requirement on a city manager. So for all the cities organized under general law, based on whether those councils have chosen to adopt an ordinance establishing a residency requirement or not, residency may be required for the city manager.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Members, are there any additional questions for either the City of North Las Vegas or council? Are they going to be for legal counsel or city? Okay, I believe now we have some more questions for the City of North Las Vegas. Thank you so much for the clarification, Mr. Killian. We miss having you in the room. We look forward to having you back soon. All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and go to Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about the actual composition of the charter board there. So you mentioned that the legislature does also have a role in deciding who those individuals are. So who actually goes about appointing the members of the board? Thank you.
Leonardo Benavides to Assemblyman De Silva. So there are 13 members in the Charter Committee as imposed by the law and now in the Charter bylaws. So 7 of them are appointed by the council members, 6 are appointed by the legislators. Each council member gets 1 appointee, except the mayor and mayor pro tem get a second additional appointee. And then for the legislator, there are 2 by the Senate majority, 1 for the Senate minority, 2 for the Assembly majority, and 1 for the Assembly minority. And then just to note, they are concurrent with the terms of the elected officials.
Members, any additional questions? Someone's good? Looks like we are good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move to anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 184. And just as we had done previously with the support, I'll remind the public, I will offer 20 minutes. I'm going to go back and forth. I'll probably begin in Las Vegas this time, and then I'll come back here. So I'll see. I don't think I'm going to have a full 10 minutes in Las Vegas, and then I'll come back to Carson City. Sometimes I forget which city I'm in. I'm going to come back to Carson City, and then I'm going to go to the phones. I will give 20 minutes for opposition, and I will allow members to just talk on, but I'll let you know if you're going a little long just to make sure that we have time. And we'll check to see if we have any calls on the line as well. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and begin in Las Vegas. Mr. Romero, when you're ready.
Thank you. Buenos días, Madam Chair, members of this committee. My name is Fernando Romero, President of Hispanics in Politics, here to voice my opposition of SB 184. It is very alarming to see a few members of the legislature sound a four-alarm fire to an area where no fire exists, yet insist that there is a fire. No one from the City Council of North Las Vegas has rung any alarms, for there is no reason to do so. Ironically, the Las Vegas City Council, with 6 wards, has council members that represent an average of 108,533 residents. Each of the 4, I repeat 4, Henderson City Council members represent 79,500 residents. Each of the 4 council members for the City of North Las Vegas represents 65,750 residents. If SB 184 were to pass, then each of the 6 council members would represent only 46,834 residents. Each of the 7 members of the Clark County Board of Commissioners represents 323,637 residents out of a population of 2.3 million residents, of which 39.7% are white, 32.3 are Latino, 12.3 are Black, 10.3 are Asian Americans, and 4.1 identify as other. 2.3 million residents represented by 1 Black and 6 white commissioners. Members of this committee, that's where the 4-alarm fire is. I ask that we all scratch from this SB 184 the words North Las Vegas City Council and pencil in Clark County Board of Commissioners to be tabled to the next legislative session. Let's put out the blaze where it really exists. No doubt the residents of color in Southern Nevada would deeply appreciate this. For everyone's sake, please oppose SB 184. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Is there anybody else in Las Vegas in opposition of the bill? Doesn't appear that there is any, so I'll go ahead and come back to Carson City. If there is anybody else in Las Vegas, please come to approach the table now. Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Stephen Wood, representing the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities, and we are in opposition to SB 184. As many of you know, the legislature in the past has prescribed in statute how amendments to city charters should come before you. The process that the legislature created in North Las Vegas, as well as Henderson, Carson City, Sparks, Mesquite, and Reno, is a bottom-up approach where charter review committees made up of residents appointed by city councils and state legislators alike consider potential charter changes that can be brought forward by members of the public, city officials, and members of the committee alike. If the Charter Review Committee has determined that changes need to be made, they make recommendations that are taken to the council, who can then submit a BDR to the legislature. The charter bills for both Reno and Carson City were previously mentioned during this hearing. Both of those bills followed this process. SB 184 undermines that process and the validity of the work of a charter review committee. The North Las Vegas Charter Review Committee did not have an opportunity to review and consider these recommended changes in an open meeting where the residents of the city, the people this bill impacts, could weigh in and have their voices heard before they were sent to the legislature. The City Council never had a chance to review these amendments either, a duty that the people of North Las Vegas elected them to do. The Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities is seriously concerned about the precedent that this bill sets by circumventing the charter review process, the ability of the residents to go to City Hall and participate fully in these discussions, and the responsibility of the council to those that they represent. A letter expressing a similar sentiment was signed by 19 of Nevada's mayors and was submitted to the committee for your consideration. As you consider SB 184, we urge you also to consider the reason for the process that allows the residents and city officials alike to recommend changes to the way that their own communities are governed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the city of Henderson. Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to read a statement on behalf of Mayor Michelle Romero.
Please proceed.
I join my fellow mayors in strongly opposing SB 184 because this legislation takes away the ability for residents of North Las Vegas to fully participate in a decision that will have long-lasting consequences for their community. A change of this magnitude should not be forced upon North Las Vegas, but should come through the charter review process. This was not the case with SB 184. As the mayor of a charter city, I understand how important it is to involve the public in discussions about changing a city charter, especially when it comes to questions about representation on a city council. I would urge this committee to reject the effort being made to short-circuit the charter review process and all it offers by way of public input, and to reject SB 184 so that it can be the residents of North Las Vegas, joined by their mayor and city council, who ultimately decide whether or not to seek the charter change this bill would require. This is the pathway that respects the role of the community and honors the tradition of long local decision-making in matters of such great importance. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Maratian with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber continues to oppose SB 184. We represent the employers located in North Las Vegas, and we are the voice of business in North Las Vegas. We believe the City Council has been focused on turning the city operations around the last 8 years, and they've been successful in those endeavors. Their staff and council leadership is commendable for what they have done. The council is engaged, focused on making that a better community, and have engaged with their constituents. They're accessible, and you regularly see that at city council meetings. The Vegas Chamber regularly participates in council meetings for over a decade and sees that on a regular basis, the work they do. We do not agree with expanding the city council size at this time, as proposed in Section 1, and we philosophically oppose to the proposal of the restrictions of the city attorney in Section 6.8 in their duties. We believe that Sections 3 and 4 should be done by the local government ordinance by the council and not placed in the city charter. While we do appreciate the conversations that this bill has created, we ask this committee to vote no on SB 184. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, Warren Hardy representing the Nevada Urban Consortium, which is made up of the cities of Las Vegas, Reno, Sparks, Henderson, and North Las Vegas. We don't dispute the fact that the legislature has the authority to make these changes and to interject itself into matters of charters. But I think the legislature historically has done a wonderful job of setting up the parameters and allowing the precedent of local governments to decide their future after approval by the legislature is appropriate. We're not here to express an opinion on the items related to the charter change to SB 184. We're not here to opine on any of the provisions of the bill. We're here with concerns about the precedent. And we have a process that has historically worked very well to allow charter committees, charter commissions, and we've spent some time making sure that cities have effective charter committees. And I think, as the video that you've seen today indicates, the charter committee in North Las Vegas is working as intended and should be allowed to do its work. So rather than opining on the provision of the bill, I would simply ask the committee to allow longstanding precedent to stand with regard to charter changes. Thank you.
Nichols County, City of Reno, for the record. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Just wanted to say ditto to all the other comments from the local governments. Also think I'm in a unique position because we are beginning the process of redistricting for the City of Reno and our 6th Ward tomorrow. So I do know that that's a long and arduous process, and it's really important that we have those conversations beforehand with our charter committee and with our community in order to make sure that that community input is given and that we can keep our communities of interest together. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Kelly Crompton representing the City of Las Vegas. I will also ditto my local government colleagues and just say that these changes are best left at the government closest to the people, which is the city governments. Thank you.
Thank you. And right on time, we have the opportunity to go ahead and go to the phones. At the time, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 184?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 184, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Peter Guzman, President of the Latin Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I want to highlight a very strong membership from North Las Vegas at the LCC, Latin Chamber of Commerce, with many, many, many businesses that exist in North Las Vegas. Our primary concern is that we believe this should be happening at the local level, not at the state level. Matters of city governance should always be decided at a local level. While this bill may have good intentions, these issues need to be addressed at the local level where decisions being made are by local government, the individuals most closely connected to the community, not state government. So for those reasons and many that have been mentioned, the Latin Chamber of Commerce opposes this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman. Next on the phone.
One moment, Chair.
Hello?
Hello, please proceed.
My name is Ray Ann Peterson. I am a lifelong Nevadan, born in
I apologize, ma'am. Could you please spell your name?
Ray Ann, R-A-E, capital A-N-N, Peterson, P-E-T-E-R-S-O-N.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I'm a lifelong Nevadan. I have lived in the original section of North Las Vegas for 62 of my 63 years. I am against SB 184. I feel that it unfairly targets the city of North Las Vegas, and that if concerns about how many constituents are represented by a single council member should be statewide addressed. It shouldn't just be done controlling one city, specifically the city of North Las Vegas, of which I'm a resident. I think things need to be done fairly and across the board to all cities within the state of Nevada. I also agree, especially with Mayor Goins Brown, and the positive things that she said about North Las Vegas. It really truly makes me sad when people stand up and say things that are negative and many times not true about North Las Vegas. It is a great city. I have great representation through my city councilman, and my city council is diverse. I don't think it needs to be changed, and I ask you to vote against this bill. Thank you.
One moment, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits 779, please press star 6 to unmute your microphone.
Good
Caller?
afternoon. My name is Lisa. Yes,
Please go ahead, caller.
thank you.
My name is Lisa Mayo. I'm here today representing myself. I was in the queue for a long time on the support side of the bill, so I wanted to get my testimony in. In 2015, a bill that
I
would
apologize,
permit Nevada cities
ma'am.
and counties-
We did hit our 20 minutes in support, and out of the interest of time and being fair, we allowed 20 minutes in support. We encourage you to send your written remarks to our committee staff. Thank you.
Okay, I have done that. Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and move to neutral. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral to SB 184? I do not see anybody here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? PPS, is there anyone online wishing to testify in neutral to SB 184?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for SB 184, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite the senator for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I won't be long. I'm just going to ask this question. We've heard a lot of things about why it shouldn't be done, but I haven't heard anyone say that it shouldn't be done. Is this good for the people? Is it good for the people? I've heard a lot about representation, adequate representation, but I would submit to you that there is something on YouTube that was put together by UNLV, Boys School of Law, Lift Up Windsor Park. And if the representation was there, then one of my colleagues wouldn't be fighting today trying to get a bill passed to get money for the residents whose houses are sinking. And this has been a 40-year battle. You also heard from Jovan Jackson, who did say he heard this when he was knocking doors. I got this request from Mikey Kelly, a fellow veteran, in 20, and decided not to do it in 20 because the state redistricting was going to happen and we really didn't need to muddle it up. So they asked me again, 21. I didn't do it then. But I would encourage the committee members to go back to the overview of Senate Bill 184, and you'll see that it's BDR number 5, which means that Senate Bill 184 came at the very end of the 2021 legislative session and wasn't something that was, quote, thunk up after November. BDR number 5, you all know what that means. The lower the number, the quicker the BDR was in. And so the BDR actually came the end of 2021 when I asked one of our former members of LCB who's now retired to put it in because they continued to ask me would I do it. People that came to the table to oppose the bill, all of us are dressed real nice, really nice. I mean, you know, business suits and, you know, we can afford to have the time off to come and do this. The people that I'm asking you to think about are the folks who are at work right now. The people who are struggling with $15 an hour to pay their rent. The people who, when they go home this evening, are probably going to be searching through the pillows of the couch trying to make sure they have gas money. The people that asked me to do this can afford to come here today. And for those who think that this is a grudge match, I mean, please. I was telling some of my friends that I said, you wouldn't believe what people are saying. They're like, surely nobody believes. I said, yeah, some people do. They don't know me. I am really not that petty. And quite frankly, I have not really concerned myself with the last race, so much so that I didn't know until Mayor Goins-Brown said the statistics. I didn't even know what it was. Because after the election was over, I was done. I was done. So I don't need some type of grudge match to make my life I just shared with you all just a few things that I did while I was in the military. I didn't share with you all of them. But if I show you some of my officer efficiency reports, you'll know that I got a full life. And I don't really need to do this kind of stuff to bring, quote, credibility to me. I don't need to do this. Don't need to do it at all. Is it good for the people? I mean, really, is it good for the people? As a company commander, I had to make a lot of difficult decisions. And some of the decisions that I had to make involved the lesser of two evils. But I always sided on the choice, the action that would benefit my soldiers, because it really was a matter of life and death. I put my own career on the line at Fort Hood because one of my soldiers who was an E4, who had been doing the job of an E6 mechanic for 9 months, lost it because of lack of sleep and had a nervous breakdown on one of the field exercises, live fire exercises. And he was then court-martialed by the brigade commander, who was a full colonel. And I went to my battalion commander and said to him, "Sir, I cannot support this court-martial." And he said, "You know, the colonel is for it." I said, "I understand that, but I can't support this because this is a soldier who was put in a situation not of his own choosing." He was an E4, and when I came in support of him, and in contrast to what the battalion, the brigade commander was asking, I was also admonished by the judge to be very careful as to what I said because my career was on the line. I knew that as well. I knew that as well. And that E4, on that day, I saw him again about 8 years later at Fort Sill, and he was an E8. And I heard somebody behind me calling me, "Captain Spearman, Captain Spearman." I'm like, okay, it was last name, but wrong rank. And he ran up to me and he thanked me. He said, "My career would have been over." So for those of you who are thinking that I am so small-minded and really do not have a life beyond this or beyond the mayor's race, 30 years from now, ain't none of us going to be in this building holding any kind of power. And so life will move on, and we should do that. The people that I am speaking for are the people who couldn't take time off of work today to come and talk to you. After everything is peeled back, ask yourself the question, because the essence of the argument of the bill that they brought to me and asked me to bring is they wanted more representation. They wanted adequate representation. They wanted fair representation. So you can ask all the questions you want about process. You know, like I said before, there were a whole lot of questions about process when we were trying to get the right to vote, process when we were trying to get fair and equal housing, process when I was at the Pentagon trying to make sure that people weren't unfairly castigating Muslims and weren't unfairly castigating people from south of the border. People always had questions about process, but at the end of the day, it was about what is right. What is right for the people? The person that testified was unfairly characterized as a paid staffer. No, she wasn't. Marla Turner was not paid at all. And for those who think that because someone, supported me in my campaign, I could say the same thing about the people who work for the city of North Las Vegas. It's their job to do that. But I don't impugn their integrity. I figure they're coming up here because they want to. Okay? So be very careful as you deliberate.
Thank you.
The final question.
Thank you, Senator. If you could just start wrapping up. Thank you.
I'm done. Okay? I'm done.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 184. We do have 3 more bills today. I am going to invite Senator Daly up. So we're just going to be here till about 5 o'clock, right, Senator? It's going to be an all-dayer, the hardest working committee on government affairs. So at this time, I am going to ask, which bill would you like to begin with? We'll just go in order. It's Daily Day. Originally, it was going to be Daily Day, but we got Spearman and Daily Day today. Little 2 for 1. We'll go ahead and just go in numerical order at this time. I'll go ahead and open up the hearing on SB 81, which revises provisions governing regional planning. I'll invite committee members. I mean, take care of yourselves if you need a cup of coffee, whatever. Senator Daley knows what it's like to be in these long hearings. In fact, he was with us for most of the time this previous one. So please, whenever you're ready, begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13, here to talk about Senate Bill 81. I did submit an amendment after working with a few people after it passed out of the Senate. So I'm going to kind of work off of that one. A little bit of background. I believe it was in 2019. We did pass a bill for the regional planning. So we're talking about 5 counties in northern Nevada: Washoe, Story, Lyon, Douglas, and Carson. As a region, and we wanted to try to bring the counties together a little bit more to try to adjust some of the growth issues and the development issues and various things on that. Right after that, we had COVID. We had a couple of things, so I don't think it worked as well as how I intended. The counties did do their part. They did put in their reports and various things. So as we come back here, we're trying to make a few changes. I want to try to make it so that each county is not making an individual report. There'll be one joint report, which is my intent. We're still going to have the 5 counties. We're going to also consult with the cities, but we also added some legislators on there just for some guidance and context, so that if there are recommendations on legislation, we have some people that are going to be able to put in bills on various things that were there at the meetings and those type of things. So after we had the meeting in the Senate, I was approached by a couple of the counties. They can come up and speak for themselves. They wanted to put an emphasis on the I-80 corridor, which borders 3 counties. It's largely in Washoe, has a little stretch in Story, and then goes into Lyon County, but all in relationship to some of the activity that's happening in Story County. And if you've ever had to go out there and there's one little hiccup, you're in an hour, 2-hour delay. So it's an issue that's important to everybody. So that's how come we made the change in there in subsection D. Again, I was approached by some people from Lake Tahoe that wanted to add in the architectural conservation and preservation planning. I said, no worries. Under transportation, we put more emphasis on the I-80. And then my understanding is that Department of Transportation has semi-annual or twice-a-year planning reports that they make. We want to try to engage with DOT on that and look at those reports and try to get some input so there can be some recommendations to try to alleviate some of those types of concerns. On the first page there in section 1, subsection 2, and I was reading again this morning, when we took out the word separate at the very bottom of that subsection 2, my intent was there, and I don't know that we've made it clear, we don't want individual reports from the county, so I think we should add the word joint report. So we're going to have the 5 counties, they're going to come together, they're going to consult with all of the agencies and make a recommendation. And there'll just be one report, is my intention. Of course, they can consult in subsection 3 with any of the other organizations. We added in economic development. We added in Department of Transportation over on the Senate side. We changed a typo from school district to school districts. And then we're hoping to have one report that comes in. We define who's on the panel in subsection 4, which includes the legislators, 2 from each house, 1 from each party in each house, and they're ex officio. They don't have a vote on what would be in or wouldn't be in as recommendations in the final report. And then we have in subsection 6 that no one is entitled to any pay on this from the legislative side of it. I know I'll be the only senator that meets the criteria, the definition, representing the region from my party in my house. So unfortunately, right now, I'm the only one. I hope after next election, we'll have more than one. Happy to answer any questions. Don't want to take up too much time. I know there'll be some people that will have concerns and various things, but I do believe there's an opportunity for these 5 counties to do some good, make some recommendations to try to address some of these issues. And it's not just about I-80. There are a variety of things that we can talk about, and then hopefully make some productive observations and recommendations to the legislature in 2025. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Daly, for that very lengthy presentation. We appreciate it. And welcome to the hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature as well. I know you two served on a government affairs committee in this body, but you did not have the privilege of serving on the hardest working Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. So we're happy that you could join us this morning. Members, any questions on SB 81? Okay, I do have a question, actually, or maybe more of a recommendation. No, we didn't have the opportunity to really meet in detail ahead of this hearing, but one of the things that I noticed is that we do require in Section 1 of the bill sub 2, we require that the reports are prepared and submitted to each legislator who represents that region. And after last legislative session, we created the interim committees that now look like the committees here. It kind of made sense to me that we might also require that they present this information or provide that report to the interim committees. I don't know what would be most appropriate. I mean, we could do either government affairs or growth and infrastructure, probably are both appropriate, perhaps both of them. Do you think that that would make sense, or would that be something?
Again, Skip Daly for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. I'm open to that. I mean, it's a report. We can print off another copy and send it to whoever you like. But yes, we were trying to get to the legislators that represent any portion of those districts. Obviously, if you wanted to send it to the interim committee, I'm assuming, seeing as how we're in government affairs in both houses for this particular legislation, that it would go to the Government Affairs Committee. But whatever recommendation, we don't know what committee those might go to. So I'm open to sending it to whoever you would recommend.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Senator. Members, any additional questions? It doesn't, it looks like we're not that tired. Don't worry. Go ahead, Assemblyman Taylor.
I'm gonna go get coffee in a minute, but just want to make sure that outside of, and sorry, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator. Good to see you. Just outside of saying the 5 counties will come together and do one report, right, into the separate ones, and then and then you have some criteria around, who gets to be on the group and so on. Outside of those, what is that the gist, the real objective of this bill? And it's not how the 5 reports just have one, so you make sure the 5 committees are working together and so on. Is that the crust of this?
Madam Chair, again, Skip Daly for the record. Previously, we had, it was bifurcated. There was 2 reports. So each county would give their individual report, and then there would be a joint report. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be better if we're trying to get people to work together, and that's why we have the simple majority vote of the county managers, just the 5. Because when I first drafted it, the legislators could have voted, cities could have voted, and there was concern that somebody would be diluted on their representation. So I said, fine, we'll just make it the county managers. And I don't know that it's going to be as useful for each county to make the report. I think the joint report, after the deliberations with the 5 county managers are going to do that. And we use the county managers. We don't involve the elected officials from the counties. So you can have frank, open discussions, various things. It would not be the elected officials, so they wouldn't be considered a public body for this particular purpose. But I think the one joint report is just going to be more efficient.
Okay, and that's the intention. That's really what we're getting to. Okay, great. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator, for this particular part. And again, this is designated for the northern part of the state. And as a Southerner, I've seen some of these effort through, I think, the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition. There's a similar effort that is done in the South. But the difference here I see is that you are involving appointment from the legislature and I apologize if I missed this during your presentation, but do you think that added steps? Because I think that's the difference that I see from the northern part versus the southern makeup of the body. They, in my opinion, have had very seldom gathering in the last, I think, 10 years I've been following county government. Do you think that adding this additional layer of appointees from the state legislature would help in somehow make this a much more, I guess, proactive process?
And thank you for the question again, Skip Daly, for the record. Yes, I think it will, right? So you have the 5 counties. We had different personalities in the past. There was resistance to this the last time we passed it. And if I failed to mention, and I think I did, that this is short period. It's 4 years. It sunsets. The previous one sunsetted, but I think with COVID and a couple of things, and it didn't get the results that I would have been hoping for. So I think putting the legislators on there, myself and some others from the north, is meant to be twofold. I'll be able to hear and see what we're going, see if we're on track, hopefully, guide and give some input. But if they just aren't meeting and just giving a lip service, I'll know that too. So that's why we have it on there. And we originally had it where they could vote, but we, like I said, changed that, and we did only have, I think, 2, and we changed that and expanded to 1 from each party from each house. So I think we'll be covered on that, but I do believe that having the legislators there would help give some input. And then, of course, if they did have a recommendation that needed a bill draft, they would have some people that had some buy-in that attended.
Quick follow-up, Chair.
Go ahead.
So the cost to set this meeting up and all of the preparation of this report and all of these things would then divide it equally among the 5 counties. The legislator don't have to contribute to this process?
Again, Skip Daly for the record. No, the legislature won't. The counties have been working together. They've done a couple of these before, and they've got, from my understanding, and you can ask one of the county people if they come up. My understanding is that they've worked that out amongst themselves. They rotate the meetings. They prepared the joint report in the past, and they'll do it, I'm assuming, the same as they did before.
Thank you for the clarity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any questions? It doesn't appear there's any additional questions. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 82, or I apologize, SB 81. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Good morning, members of the committee. For the record, Tom Morley, representing Laborers Local 169, and we're in support. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else wishing to testify in support for SB 81 here in Carson City. Is there anybody in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of SB 81? Doesn't appear that there is. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 81?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 81, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Seems like people are having fun outside. Very loud. Not as much fun as the hardest working committee on government affairs, though. We're on hour number 2, and I feel like we got to do 4-hour hearings more often. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 81 here in Carson City? Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Mary Walker, representing Douglas County, Lyon County, and Story County, 3 of the rural counties included in this bill. We're opposed to SB 81. However, we do appreciate Senator Daly for meeting with us and hearing our concerns. Our major concern is on page 3, paragraph 4 of the original bill. Basically, what it states, when they are selecting the, well, I have the wrong bill. When they are selecting when the leadership is selecting the members to serve on this committee, it is typically, in the 30 years that I've been lobbying for local governments, it's typically that the majority leader of each house or the speaker, they appoint whatever party that they, whatever members are going to be there from their party, and then you have the minority leaders who would also appoint. So it's fair and square. It's very even-handed. What this does, however, is it changes that long-standing protocol, and instead what it is it would be the Senate Majority Leader and it would be the Speaker who would appoint both the Democrat and Republican members. And because our rural counties are represented by Republicans, we are concerned about, if we're going to get appropriate representation. And like, for example, what could happen is you could get 4 people who are all from Washoe County, and the other 4 counties would not have representation. So those are the types of things that we are concerned about, and we would appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Will Adler for the record, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing Story County. We'd first like to thank Senator Daley for all the work he has spent on SB 81. SB 81 is the continuation of a regional planning group that goes on today between the 5 counties mentioned in the bill. The beginning of the bill, we had a lot of concerns with the structure of the bill or how it was, put together. But at this time, we would like to just say that the bill has come a long way and has actually improved in many ways. But sadly, our commission at this time has felt the need to oppose the bill still because we don't feel a need for this regionality or this continued communication, as we already do such actions, and the previous bill did create a stimulus between the counties that we already have these conversations going on at this time. But we would like to mention that we appreciate the addition of focus on Highway 80 and the continual need to improve that traffic corridor and the tools that this committee will now have at their disposal to increase our ability to get information on that and the timeline on its improvements. So we want to thank the senator for his change to the bill, but also sadly I have to oppose it at this time. Thank you very much. Appreciate your hearing this bill.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 80? I apologize. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition to SB 81? I don't see any here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral to SB 81?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. Washoe County is neutral on this bill, but does want to thank Senator Daley for all of the work that he put in and the many meetings that he had with local governments to hear our concerns. Washoe County did have some significant concerns with the bill as introduced, and Senator Daley, as he described today, did work through those with us. And particularly, I wanted to come forward because there were some new amendments brought forward to the bill today to indicate that Washoe County is supportive of those amendments, particularly the focus on I-80 and the amendments to address issues in the Tahoe Basin. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify neutral here in Carson City or in Las Vegas? It doesn't appear that there is any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 81?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Senator, any closing remarks?
Very quickly, Madam Chair, again, Skip Daly for the record. I do believe that we worked very hard as I could to address as many of the concerns as I could. I was hoping to get people at least to neutral. I know some of the concerns were brought forward to me by Story County, and so we worked through them and put them in. In regard to the one issue on who appoints, no rule. Majority leader can appoint both. That people that are going to be on that have to be and represent some part of the area. In theory, it could happen that people are all from Washoe County, but I don't believe that will happen, and I will if I have a chance, make recommendations that it does not. So I don't think that's much of a concern. And I know they say that some of the counties have been working together, and I hope that that is the truth, and maybe we'll see that. But I think we have to go through this process and try to identify those issues and make some recommendations to this body. And I don't think we can do that without some catalyst to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 81. I am going to go ahead and just take a moment of personal privilege and move us into like a 1-minute recess. So if you have to do anything in that 1 minute, do it now. Thank you. the hardest working committee and the happiest committee in the Nevada State Legislature is going to go ahead and reconvene. I don't know, we were just waiting on Senator Daley, but he decided to make it back to us. Let the record reflect that Senator Daley is present with us here and ready to present. He's been ready all day. I think he actually might have gotten to the legislative building at like 5 in the morning. And he was like doing some push-ups and some pull-ups and getting ready. And now he is here and ready to go. During the plank challenge of one of our special sessions in 2020, Senator Daley won. No surprise. So at this time, I will go ahead and open up the hearing on SB 82, which revises provisions related to public works. Senator Daley, when you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, Skip Daly representing Senate District 13. And more specifically on public works, this bill addresses the Apprentice Utilization Act, which was Senator Brooks proposed, I believe it was in 2019. So what we're trying to do with this, when I originally had it drafted and we started talking with some of the stakeholders and various things, in which we had several meetings. We haven't come to 100% agreement with everybody, but I did make a lot of movement. So we're changing this process from a job-by-job criteria or threshold to an annual, you have to meet the goal or try to meet the goal on an annual basis. You'll hear some of the contractors, I believe, come up and say that that will be easier for them to manage if they need to move an apprentice from one job or position to another. So they're just going to look at the total number of hours that they worked on public works in a year, and then how many of how many hours were performed by apprentices on that number of hours. So if they may have 0 apprentices on one job and additional apprentices on another one, they can manage that based on the complexity of the job, based on the hazards of various things on there, so they can manage that work better. So this will eliminate or take away the provisions in subsection 1 and subsection 2, which is for vertical and horizontal. It's no longer based on the number of men on the job, because it's not on per job, so it's just going to be total hours over the course of the year. Subsection 3 and 4, there was no change from the original bill. I will just note that in subsection 4, the idea for subsection 5 came from there, is that if an apprentice graduates while he's on a public works job, that he's not automatically laid off. He can still be recognized and utilized as apprentice for the remainder of that job. So getting to section 5, and we had a lot of discussion on this, and I guess this is the hang up for quite a few people. This is the portion of the bill that I believe is one of the more important parts. If an apprentice graduates, then if he wasn't on a public works job or whatever, we set it up so that if an apprenticeship chooses and they don't have any other apprentices available, that they could potentially send someone who's graduated within the last 3 years to a contractor who's signatory to a collective bargaining agreement with that particular union. And they can be recognized for up to 3 years after that. They have to be paid the prevailing wage rate as a journeyman for all other purposes. So let me just explain that to you again. If they call and say, we're requesting an apprentice, and that program and that craft does not have any workers or have any apprentices to send, if they have an apprentice who had graduated in the last 3 years, they could send that person out and they would be recognized and counted towards meeting their apprentice utilization. And I'll explain a little bit further on that. So as many of you know, my previous job before I retired last June, I was the business manager for the Laborers Union Local 169 for 21 years. So we worked under this provision under the old way. We would receive requests from contractors. We would send back the notification that says, yes, we think we can fill your job. They would call back and say, hey, this is the date I need somebody. We would then dispatch the worker, the apprentice to the job, or we would say, we don't have any. And then they would have to go through the public body to the labor commissioner to request a waiver. So that whole waiver process and various things is not really going to be in play anymore. We're not going to have to deal with the public bodies, because I think some of the contractors will tell you as well that each public body was doing it differently, interpreting it differently, and it just created some turmoil. So I have experience using the process that we had. I think this will be smoother. Has many of the same elements. A contractor is required to call in and request apprentices. We have language in here, as you probably read, that says they have to do that not earlier than 10 days before the job starts and not later than 5 days after they've started. We had contractors that would send in a notice because different public bodies were interpreting differently. You had to put it in at time of bid. So we're getting 5 requests from somebody who's just bidding on a job. They don't know if they're going to get the job. They're not going to get order proceed for another 60 days, 30 days, if they're the ones that actually get the job. So there's a lot of wasted time and paperwork. So we're saying, hey, look, contractor, when you have the job, 10 days before you start, not later than 5 days after that. And then if we're unable to get an apprentice on the first attempt, let's just say, in any program, then they have a continuing duty because they have 12 months to try to comply with the number that they're trying to hit, the 10% or the 3% based on vertical or horizontal. So they have an ongoing duty to call once every 30 days, unless they have an apprentice and they think they're going to meet the mark that they're trying to hit. Then they wouldn't have to continue to call. So we're trying to set some of this stuff up coming from how this actually worked before and what we're trying to do to make it so that it's easier for contractors to manage, and I think easier for the apprenticeship programs to manage as well. So subsection 5 will allow a person who's graduated within the last 3 years to potentially be dispatched to a contractor that has an agreement with that particular craft for up to 3 years afterward, but only if there's no apprentices, and then talking with some of the unions and various things. And all of the apprenticeship programs are slightly different, only if they allow it. They don't have to do it. So when some of the people come up and say they don't like that part, I would just say the fact that it's there and other people can use it, if you don't want to, don't. But the fact that it's there for other people to take advantage doesn't hurt you. So I don't know why you have such heartburn over it. In subsection 7, you can see the proposed amendment there on that. We're trying to make clear on what a good faith effort is. So a contractor has to maintain the records that he submitted the form. Labor Commissioner has a form. It's a request for availability is the name of the form, that they submitted it to the appropriate apprenticeable craft or the apprenticeship program to request an apprentice. The union will either send an email back or they'll sign the form and send it back to you that says, yes, we're going to send you some people. They usually send additional information on how you dispatch and various things as well. So they would have to document that they're making these efforts in order to utilize the apprentices and comply with the law. If the union doesn't respond, we have language in there about that as well. Somebody say, how do you prove a negative? I said, send a follow-up email and say, hey, we haven't heard from you, and keep that chain. The contractor has to prove that if he's unable to meet the percentages that he's looking for as his good faith effort to comply. And if you make the good faith effort, then you won't get any of the penalties that are in there. But the AGC in the north, and I believe in the south as well, or the NCA in the south, wanted to make sure that good faith effort, that there was some discretion by the labor commissioner to be able to do that. So the good faith effort is as determined by the labor commissioner to comply. Because we're not trying to have it just be cast in stone and this is that. There has to be some discretion and look at it, how much effort did you make, et cetera. And then as we continue to go forward, we have language regarding the excuse me, what good faith effort means. I believe it's, yes, what your good faith effort is and how you would go about doing that when you, like I said, 10 days before, not later than 5 days after. And then did they make a good faith effort or refuse to do so? It's not a good faith effort. So if an employer is signatory with the union that he's requesting from, they already have a collective bargaining agreement and they have an obligation to make the contributions to the trust fund. If it's a non-signatory employer, they still have to comply, and the union or the apprenticeship program is still has an obligation to try to send them apprentices. And if they do, there has to be a written agreement under the trust funds in order for that employer to make the contributions to the trust fund. So there's a form that is set out. The Labor Commissioner helped draft it, North and South. It's pretty uniform. Slight variations for each union. But that has to be on file in order for the union to dispatch, in order for them, contractors, to pay the contributions in. So if they refuse to sign that form, that's not going to be counted as a good faith effort. So they're required to sign it, and if they don't, then they're not performing or doing their good faith effort. And then in subsection 8, again, the AGC asked, and I talked with LCB, and they said that it really doesn't make that much difference. So the supporting documentation is the supporting documentation. Did you send in the form? Did you receive something back? Did you get an apprentice dispatched? Did you make the good faith efforts? Did you make the continuing calls in once every 30 days if you weren't able to get an apprentice the first time? So whether it must be this particular information or may be this information, what the information is going to be is it's either you have it or you don't. So must or may didn't make any difference. So I said, this is just an example then of some of the information that you should be collecting. Section 9 was something that the contractors asked me to, subsection 9, contractors asked to put in that we'll coordinate. A lot of times we'll get these requests ahead of time, several weeks. We don't know if we're going to have somebody. So if there was a request that was put in, the union didn't have anybody at that particular time or their apprenticeship program, but they have someone 10 days later, we need to coordinate with the contractor. We can't just send a guy out blind. He thinks there's nobody coming. He's going to have to make another request in the 30-day time frame. So if we have somebody in between, we need to coordinate the contractor, coordinate with the employer on that level. Subsection 10, I might have passed over. So the other part that we're asking people to do is they're going to send in an annual report. The contractor is going to send in an annual report on how many hours he had on vertical construction, how many hours he had on horizontal construction, how many hours on vertical were done by apprentices, how many hours on horizontal were done by apprentices, and then you're going to measure that to see if you hit the percentage, the 10 or 3%. So subsection 10 is meant to be an additional penalty to the penalties that are outlined coming up in the future sections. If you fail to turn in that report at all, you'll get an additional penalty, or if you make no effort, and that's where we made one of the changes. If you made no effort, then you can get the additional penalty. That's in section 14. So then there's a schedule, and this was suggested to me by the contractors again, on the percentages, and if you meet it, and the different levels on increasing penalty if you didn't hit the target numbers that you wanted to hit. Section 14 is that additional penalty. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. And then Section 16 clarifies that if you're a contractor who's already a signatory to an agreement with the union sponsoring the program, that you don't have to sign those single job agreements. The contractor who's not signatory does. And I'll stop there. I probably confused you. There's a lot of moving parts. You have to understand how it all works. But happy to answer any questions. Hopefully I can clear a few things up. We did spend a lot of time on this to try to get it to where it's at. And not everybody's happy, so we probably are somewhere in the middle.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to work on this. I did hear from a number of people that you had pretty regular work sessions, and I know the AGC met with me ahead of this bill and helped kind of walk me through it too. So thank you so much for that. So at this time, I'll go ahead and go to members. Any questions? Assemblyman Carter.
Good morning, and thank you for the presentation. I got questions and serious concerns about Article 1, Section 1, subsection 5. It seems like we're trying to turn apprenticeships from 4, 3, or 5-year programs into 7 or 8-year programs. And the original intent, and I've talked to Chris Brooks, was to create a pipeline. And that's what we've been talking about in all of these areas. In Section 5, subsection 5 appears to subvert the purpose and intent of this original piece of legislation. And I'm also concerned about, it appears that it only applies to union contractors. Shouldn't legislation apply to everybody equally? And I'm just very, very confused how this subsection got put in here, classifying journeymen as apprentices. And if you could help enlighten me, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question, and I will do my best. Again, as I said, if you go to subsection 4, that's where the language was, where journeymen can be recognized as apprentices for the continuation of that job. So we're not trying to extend the length of a program. How long a program is set up in the apprenticeship standards as well. And we did have a lot of discussion on this. We're not trying to extend the length of the program. Program length is in the standards that you have, right? So this language is, if there are no apprentices available and you're trying to help a contractor get to his number, and I'll have one other explanation for you as well. And we had some concerns with crafts, electricians, a couple others, that said, well, isn't this going to subvert and take away from apprentices getting out on the job? And that's why we added in the language that only if there's no apprentice available. They have to call that program and they say, is there an apprentice available? The reason, again, so that's the only criteria in time you can do it. And then if you still don't want to, the union has to agree, or the apprenticeship program has to agree that they're willing to send the journeyman in that deal. And not every program is the same. I know electricians have a 5-year program. I believe they do anyway. Not everybody does. I know the laborers program is a 2-year program. It's a little bit different scenario, and not all of them are the same. So if a union is in a situation where they don't have any other apprentices and they have people that maybe just got laid off because they graduated, and I did have that happen once on one of our projects. The guy graduated, contractor laid him off the next day, and we said, no, he gets to finish that job. But we do have small contractors as well, where there may be no apprentices available. He's only got a 6-man crew. The apprentice graduates. He can't get any more. He's still, I'm not going to be in compliance, right? Where he then can utilize that guy for a period of time into the future until he can get an apprentice. On the next job, he's got to call again. And we would have to then say, or you would have the ability to say, all right, you continue to use that guy, we still don't have anybody for you. So it creates some flexibility. And like I said, we have seen people be laid off when they graduated, and we don't want to have that situation. So we put as much flexibility into it, and that's why I said earlier in my opening statements, the fact that it exists doesn't hurt anybody if they don't want to participate or if they have an apprentice. It just creates another option for a different program or a different apprenticeship program if it is going to benefit the worker, benefit the apprentice, benefit the program, benefit the contractor. We'll go from there. On your final question on about it only applies to union contractors, I am not as familiar with how the non-union programs work. I didn't know how to write some language. I asked early on if someone could give me some. They never did. I promised the ABC if they come up with some language in the interim, I'll save a bill and we'll address it next legislative session. But I didn't want to have, and I hope you can appreciate this, I didn't want to have a situation where a program did not have any apprentices. They only had the journeyman. I didn't want to put anyone in a situation where they would have felt obligated to send a journeyman to a non-signatory employer. So that's how come it's only for a signatory employer. I don't know if that satisfies you or not, but that's the answers.
Yes, go ahead.
And I'm trying to avoid speechifying like they do over in the Senate or down in the Senate. My concern is still that this is putting implied encouraged language into CBAs and possibly countering what apprenticeship documents say, because typically in the skilled trades, that once you turn out, you now are on the dispatch program for the union, that the apprenticeships do not dispatch journeymen. And I'm trying to understand why we're trying to legislate implied terms of CBAs and apprenticeship agreements.
Thank you again. Skip Daly for the record. I don't believe that this language changes anything in anybody's apprenticeship standard, and I don't believe it changes anything in anybody's collective bargaining agreement. In fact, I'm certain that it does not do either, right? And the language creates an option for a program if they want to be able to use it, if it's beneficial to the worker in their program, only if there are no apprentices available. And I can tell you, for ours, when we did this, we ran out of apprentices routinely, especially in the summertime. I don't think we had apprentices on the out of work list where we had any backlog at all more than a week, and that was in February. So some of these options can be useful to the employers and to the unions. And if you don't want to use it, then don't. Nobody's forcing anybody to do it. Doesn't change any terms, any collective bargaining agreement or apprenticeships agreement. It's just whether or not they would be recognized for purposes of meeting the percentage or not. Still have to be paid the full prevailing wage if they're already graduated, et cetera. So anyway.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? Assemblywoman Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and again, thank you, Senator, for spending the morning with us. Just a quick question: when you talk about, and this has come up in several bills, that the builder, the contractor, or it's has to show good faith, what's required for that to happen?
Thank you again, Skip Daly, for the record. So in order to, and it's outlined in the bill, but in order to show good faith, the contractor has an obligation to make a request for availability, and that's just the name of the form. So they have to make a request, and it's per craft and per employer. So the general contractor has his obligation. If he employs laborers and carpenters, then he's got to call for laborers and carpenters. And if it's an electrical subcontractor on a project, and they need electricians, they got to call the electrical craft. So they send the form in. They can email it. Generally, they come over emails. They can fax it. That says, hey, there's certain information. This is the job. This is the type of work. You know, this is the dates. Do you have apprentices? And on that form, at the bottom, there's a spot for the apprenticeship program or the union to check the box that says, yes, we have apprentices available. They sign it and they send it back. So the good faith effort on the part of the employer is to make the requests, right? And there's the time periods. And if they don't get anything back from the union, the union just doesn't say anything or do anything, after 5 days, that's considered a denial, or in the old process, you would have been able to put in for a waiver. So now that's a denial. They do the best they can to document that. They have an ongoing obligation, because it's over the course of a year now that they have to meet this, not just job by job, to continue to send in that request every 30 days if the union still doesn't answer or has another person coming up. So there's steps that they would take, making those requests, documenting the response, documenting whether they got an apprentice. And if they've got that and can show that and go to the Labor Commission at the end and say, hey, I put this in on every single job that I had, and I didn't get any response, or I did get a response and I had apprentices that were sent to me, but I didn't meet my percentage, it's because I was denied or didn't get the information on these other ones. And that's where we have some discretion at the Labor Commissioner on that. And if you make adequate good faith effort, then you won't get any penalties. If you make half-hearted good faith effort, you'll probably get some of the penalties. And if you make no effort, you will get the penalties.
I appreciate that. It's come up often, and I knew there was a process I had to continue, but how it ended up, that gives me what I need. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any additional questions? And I do think that the Assemblywoman said thank you for spending time here, and I think really you should be thanking us for having the privilege to spend your morning with the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. I think he concurs. He nodded his head. Let the record reflect he agrees.
I think he's going to skip that.
We might be 3.5 hours in or 2.5 hours in, but we're still here for a good time. All right, at this time, I don't believe there's any additional questions. We'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 82. We are at 3 hours now. It's 10:55. I thought it said 10:25. We are 3 hours in. Great job, hardworking committee. When
Good
you're ready,
morning.
please begin.
Good morning, committee. For the record, Tom Morley, representing Laborers Local 872 and Laborers Local 169, and we are in support. Thank you.
Greg, yes, good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the hardest working Government Affairs Committee on the fourth floor of this building. Greg Esposito, representing the Nevada State Pipe Trades, which is plumbers and pipe fitters, Local 525 in the south and Local 350 in the north. One common thing that I've noticed whenever Senator Daley presents a bill is many people get to the table and compliment him on how hard he has worked to make the bill good for all involved. If he would just stop writing such omnibus bills, then maybe he wouldn't have to work so hard. But this is no exception. He did meet with the stakeholders from week one. Out of the gate, this bill was terrible, and we opposed it very strongly. But fortunately, through his hard work and through diligence, it's gotten to a place where we don't hate it as much as we did, and so that's where we're at this time. Thank you.
Madam Chair, committee members, Bill Wellman, representing Las Vegas Paving here today, Nevada's largest contractor. And I want to thank Senator Daley for bringing this bill. I've been a part of this legislation since 2011 and was part of it in 2019, and frankly was opposed to it when Senator Brooks brought this forward. This new legislation is much needed. Because the current legislation from 2019, frankly, just does not work as intended. I mean, it's extremely cumbersome by doing it project by project. It's subjective in interpretation, in its monitoring, and frankly, the penalties. And also, just not creating the apprentice utilizations that this whole process is intended. We have the most robust apprentice program. We had it in 2011 when we started this process then, and we do today and are proud of it, but it needs to work. While not perfect, SB 82 will fix many of the current problems. One being safety issues. Not every project can have an apprentice. For those of you in the South, from Southern Nevada, I-15. We are currently paving I-15 at night from the Spaghetti Bowl to Craig Road. It's a high-speed freeway. It's not behind barrier rail because we open every lane every day for traffic. At night, we close it to 1 or 2 lanes only. We can't have an apprentice on such a project. They're learning how to work around equipment, around people, and frankly, the hardest thing there is to do is protect somebody from themselves if they're uneducated that way. This will help. That way we get rid of the need on each and every project for safety reasons. Because frankly, whatever the law might say, we will not compromise safety regardless of the law. We'll pay the penalty, and I don't think that's fair. It removes the third parties, the local entities that do the policing today.
Thank you. If you could start wrapping up your testimony.
Yeah, okay. Reduce the number of waivers needed. And it puts it back in the contract as the contractor's responsibility. We're the ones that are penalized if we don't meet these obligations. And that's why we're asking for it to be on an annual basis. And let us build our organizations and our workforce as we need and see it best for the work that we do in itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Stacy Lindberg. I'm the owner of CNS Company, an underground utility in the South and throughout the state or Southern Nevada. And this is such a needed bill right now. And as a small DBE contractor in the state of Nevada, a union contractor, this is something that we deal with on a daily basis. It's such a point of conversation because it's hard to manage. And as a small contractor where I have 5 guys on a crew, we use the apprenticeship and we use it with or without the rules because we believe in it. We believe in bringing our skill to help off. But I have let 5 guys go on a 60-guy crew because they term out on their apprenticeships, and I have to bring somebody else in. I also was faced with 6 fines on projects where it wasn't safe. I don't dig for utilities, I dig around utilities. I don't put in streetlights. I install streetlights, and it's dangerous. So depending on a 5-man crew, I can't have somebody out there that's not skilled, and I take the fine versus somebody's safety. So the way it's worked right now, if I have a larger project that's spread out in different crews, I can use more apprentices and have skilled help for them with my other guys. So this is a really good thing for the small contractor, and it's good for the apprenticeship because I can actually take my best guys and put apprentices with them instead of on a 5-man crew trying to putting an apprentice in a bad situation for my company as them as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you approve SBA 82.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Glenn Levitt, the Director of Government Affairs for the Nevada Contractors Association. We represent 450 plus contractors, subcontractors, and industry affiliates, primarily in Southern Nevada. I always take pleasure in testifying on this committee because I get these amazing looks from all of you. The Nevada Contractors Association is supportive of SB 82. Our contractors are ultimately responsible to fulfill the requirements of this legislation, and as it eases the burden on the contractors that operate in good faith, we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing both signatory and open shop construction companies in Northern Nevada. And we, too, are here in support of SB 82. And I, too, want to start by thanking the sponsor. He has worked since before session started with any stakeholder who bothered to show up, voice concern, had questions, or needed clarification. We appreciate how hard he has worked to get this bill from where it started to where it is today. It isn't perfect, but it's miles better than what is currently in statute. Meeting the terms of the Apprenticeship Utilization Act falls squarely on contractors and subcontractors. We have vetted this bill with our members, the ones required to comply with the law, and the only ones who will face the consequences if they do not, and they are in support. This does not change the fundamental purpose of the AUA to require the use of apprentices on public works projects so that they get the hands-on real-world experience. This bill simply makes the process for contractors to comply cleaner and easier. Flaws in all, this bill is a vast improvement over the existing Apprenticeship Utilization Act. We shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone else wishing to testify in support of SB 82. I do not see anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 82?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 82. When you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mac Bybee. I'm the President and CEO of the Associated Builders and Contractors of Nevada. ABC, my organization runs apprenticeship programs for open shop contractors. ABC programs are state approved and federally recognized. Electrical, plumbing, sheet metal, low voltage, carpentry, operating engineers are all of our apprenticeship programs. Apprenticeship is extremely important to ABC as an organization and my members. This legislation amends the utilization requirements on public works in a problematic way. The Apprenticeship Utilization Act was enacted with the intent of encouraging workforce development through the use of apprentices, whether they be union or open shop. That was its purpose. SB 82 would allow journey workers, graduates of apprenticeship programs, to qualify as apprentices. Apprentices are beginners in a trade. Journey workers are graduated craft professionals. There's a difference. Journey workers are already working on public works in every trade. They're already on the job site. Those jobs can't work without them. There's not an additional incentive needed to place a journey worker on a job site. They're actually in high demand, and anybody who's skilled in their trade is working today, open shop or union. I think many of us that have been involved with apprenticeship can agree that the Apprenticeship Utilization Act hasn't worked as well as we had hoped. Getting people to look at construction as a viable career path is difficult, but we try and we attract and we try to get the best people we can. But that doesn't make a trade for an apprentice and a journey worker the same, because it's not. I do want to thank Senator Daley for his willingness to meet with us and talk over these issues. He has made a lot of amendments, and I hope we can continue to have this conversation and create further modifications. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ronnie Young, and I represent over 4,000 members of the IBEW Local 357. We stand in opposition of SB 82 as written because we feel that Section 5 of the bill will circumvent the purpose of this law, which is to increase the demand of the next generation of trade workers in Nevada. I myself am a journeyman wireman. I went through an apprenticeship, and I understand people's concerns about safety, but I could tell you from my own personal experience that, learning how to handle the dangerous situations of a job site through an apprenticeship is what allows me to not only safely navigate the job myself, but to teach upcoming generations how to navigate those same issues going forward, because construction is a dangerous trade and we need to know how to handle it properly and safely. So we thank Senator Daley for meeting with us on multiple work sessions to address our concerns. He's done a lot of work on the bill. It's improved tremendously. It's just this is something that we feel very strongly about. So thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Dylan Keith with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber continues to have concerns about the apprenticeship piece of this bill. We do trust the proponents of this bill to keep working on this legislation to get it where it needs to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see any additional opposition to SB 82 here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone, and I don't see anybody in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 82?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 82? Looks like we have someone in Las Vegas. And thank you for your patience. I understand that you have been there during a very fun hearing in government affairs, so thank you for your patience. And please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair. Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Our office provides the enforcement on the AUA, or the Apprenticeship Utilization Act, so I just wanted to be here to answer any questions of the committee if you had them.
Members, any questions? I don't believe that we have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and invite the bill sponsor for any closing. Oh, is there anyone on the phone? Thank you. I appreciate it. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 82?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsor for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, Skip Daly for the record, and I appreciate the back and forth, the support, and the opposition. Worked long and hard trying to get this and all of the ideas and how is this really going to work to move forward. And from my point of view, I think we've reached that point. I've done as much as I can to try to get some of the stuff and to address the subsection 5 that seems to be at most at angst. It's not new, right? So we have the Apprentice Utilization Act in the state of Nevada, which is relatively new. We're trying to make an adjustment, change it from per job to an annual type basis. But the idea in subsection 5 that journeymen or apprentices are equal to journeymen, vice versa, at the risk of alienating some of you, you just need to look at California and what they do. If you've ever graduated from an apprenticeship program, you count towards the threshold or the percentage that you're required to have on that. So they don't care which program you graduated from. Our apprentices can go to California if they're graduated, and they're going to be counted as meeting the apprentice utilization requirement regardless. So this isn't new. This is just trying to take a baby step, at least here in Nevada, to see how this works. It's going to give a better opportunity. People are not going to have to be laid off. You do have, the contractor CNS came up, small crews, where they've got their crews set, various things, and they had an apprentice, but then when he graduates, he no longer fits in on that crew. And those crews go from individual jobs to individual jobs. Now you can manage that over the whole course of the year. We were getting requests in from contractors under the old way. We're going to be on the job for 2 days. They needed an apprentice for less than 8 hours, and they had to call us in. We had to try to send somebody out and various things, and it just wasn't efficient. And we had full employment. Every apprentice that we had, unless they were not willing to go out of town, was working, and we were unable to fill apprentice positions. I was just in the hall, the laborers union hall last week, and they have up on the board, every open position that they had on the board up there were for apprentices. We're not going to be undercutting any actual apprentice utilization with this measure, and it's actually just going to be more efficient. So with that, I'm hoping you'll approve the bill with the amendments that we provided here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. We'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 82. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the hearing on SB 433, which revises provisions related to prevailing wages.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, Skip Daly for the record, representing Senate District 13. The Senate Bill 433, from its original version, has been pared down to just a couple of sections, or you have in section 1 throughout, or section 3 throughout the bill. Is the only reason it's more than one page. So what we wanted to try to do is to ask the Labor Commissioner, have the Labor Commissioner adopt by regulations what type of factors might be utilized on this. And I'll tell a little bit of a story. So in sub 3 at the top of page 2, we're trying to establish that the Labor Commissioner is not bound by any determination or finding of a public body relating to the applicability of just the 338 to 090, 013 to 090. And then any determination made by the Labor Commissioner as to the applicability of prevailing wage is a final order for purpose of judicial review. So whatever determination the Labor Commissioner may make is subject to judicial review, whichever side of that you're on. So what the genesis of this language was recently, and I can tell you 100 stories if you like, but I'm sure you don't want to at this late hour. But you have awarding bodies or agencies, redevelopment agencies. You had examples from Carson Tahoe Hospital from 15 years ago, et cetera, where a local jurisdiction was making a determination that prevailing wage didn't apply. The law may have said that it does if you're issuing financing bonds through a county, but they made a determination that it doesn't apply. What we want to do is they say, hey, the Labor Commissioner is really the only one that have to enforce it. They should be the only ones that have to do that. So recently in the city of Sparks, they did a redevelopment job. They sold a parking garage. They traded, actually, a parking garage worth $950,000 for 50 floors on the bottom. And they made a determination on their own through their legal counsel that prevailing wage didn't apply. They didn't make a finding, but they determined that it didn't apply. So when a complaint was filed with the Labor Commissioner ruled against them and said, no, prevailing wage applies. When we went to court on appeal, the judge was saying, well, if there would have been a finding, if the city council would have made a finding, then they don't know that the Labor Commissioner would have been overruled their finding. And I thought to myself, I said, I can make a finding that the chair of the committee is 6 feet tall. It's close, but not quite. It would clearly be an erroneous finding, but only the Labor Commissioner should be able to make the decision. So somebody making a finding is not going to make any difference, and I think it just would be fraught with trouble. So I think the Labor Committee, we have to establish who has authority to enforce the law. Labor Commissioner has to be able to make the determination. We have to do it off of the factors that would be adopted by regulation. And then whatever decision is made by the labor commissioner is subject to judicial review. So if she made an error, the court will decide. If she made the right decision, the court would affirm. So that's basically the bill. I took all of the other stuff out except for these two things. Happy to answer questions, but it's pretty, no simple and no easy bills, but it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and invite any committee members with questions. Does it appear that we have any questions? Thank you, Senator Daly. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 433. Doesn't appear I have anybody here in Carson City. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of SB 433? I don't see anyone. BPS, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, is there any opposition to SB 433? When you're ready, please begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Brian Reeder, speaking on behalf of the Nevada Contractors Association, representing the commercial construction industry in Southern Nevada. NCA is opposed to SB 433, but we want to be clear, NCA supports prevailing wage and always has, and has fought to make sure that all public works are constructed using labor that is paid prevailing wage. NCA opposed SB 433 in the Senate because it listed several factors that the Labor Commissioner must consider when determining if a construction project is subject to the laws governing prevailing wage, but these projects could be private sector projects, not public works. The reprint of this bill does not include the list, but the requirement for the Labor Commissioner to develop such factors remains. NCA believes this bill is overly broad and could have a negative impact on private development in Southern Nevada, and for that reason, NCA is opposed. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Dylan Keith with the Vegas Chamber. We do believe that this bill is overly discretionary for this position. We do agree with the parameters that are currently set, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition to SB 433? I do not see anyone. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 433?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 433. Thank you. Commissioner Harris, I imagine you're here in neutral, just here for questions.
Good morning, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner for the record. Yes, that is correct, Chair.
Members, any questions? I do have one quick question while you're here. If you could go ahead and describe kind of what that current process is and how this piece of legislation is going to change that. Thank you.
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner for the record. So to me, I think the biggest thing is that NRS 338, the chapter, does not define public money. So in terms of what is considered public money for the purposes of applying prevailing wage, I think that's trying to address that lack of definition.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Members, any additional questions? It doesn't appear there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on the phones wishing to testify neutral to SB 433?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the senator for closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, Skip Daly for the record. And I want to point out some of the opposition testimony. If you weren't listening carefully, I just want to make sure that you hear it loud and clear. So what they said, Mr. Reeder, was that, oh, the NCA supports prevailing wage on public works projects. What they apparently now are in opposition of prevailing wage on other, quote unquote, private projects, where we already have an existing law, and I can look it up, it's at least in half a dozen or if not more places. You have NRS 279-500 that says if a redevelopment agency provides incentives of over $100,000, that prevailing wage applies to the same extent as if the public body had awarded the project itself. So all of the project at the Sparks Marina under that are all prevailing wage redevelopment agency, STAR bonds, SDAR, sales tax anticipated revenue. If the city or a county sells bonds, in order to help facilitate private development. So the Target in Sparks was built under prevailing wage. So it wasn't a public work, right? Not defined. NRS 271, 244A, I think it's what the city's 789, whatever it is, the cities are covered under. All of those have requirements that if they help private development with incentives that already exists that requires the payment of prevailing wage. So if you didn't listen to what the NCAA said very carefully, they said they support it for public works. So if something doesn't meet the definition of a public work but also has these incentives, there's also several sections of law where prevailing wage is applicable, should be applied, and we have public agencies trying to make determinations without authority over, hey, I don't think it applies, and they can make whatever finding they want. We have to have the person who enforces the law be able to make that decision for judicial review and just look at what the law says and say, does it apply or doesn't it apply? And what are those factors we need to develop by regulation? So that's it, unless you have another question for me. But it's news to me today that the NCAA is opposed to prevailing wage.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 433. I guess I thought that after my first cup of coffee, I'd wake up a little bit more. We just can't get used to this 8 a.m. start time. So we have closed the hearing on SB 433. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in public comment? Doesn't appear there is. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? I don't believe so. BPS, is there anyone online wishing to testify in public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Members, any remarks? And we do have remarks. Vice Chair Durand.
As long as you don't make this a daily habit, an 8 a.m. start.
Otherwise, the committee might revolt. Just show up at 9 anyway. All right, so tomorrow, I forgot what day it is. So tomorrow on May 10th, we will be having 3 bill hearings. We'll be meeting in room 3143. So we haven't been there in a while, but we will be in room 3143. We also have a work session on 9 bills. Please make sure you take the time to review the work session document. We'll make sure that's sent out to committee members shortly. And please note that the committee manager did send out a note that if you would like a binder, please let them know. They've noticed that many of our committee members aren't really using them. So please let the committee staff know if you would like that physical copy. If you could do so and reply to that email immediately, that'd be helpful. And so tomorrow we will be meeting at 9 a.m. So committee members will be meeting at 9 a.m. At this time, Assemblyman MacArthur, you have any closing remarks? No closing remarks from Assemblyman MacArthur today. At this time, the meeting is adjourned.
Please, can we skip David?